Chapter 4640. Fellow Taoists. Xiao Hua immediately sent a sound transmission in his heart. The southwest direction of Longevity Town is blocked by a forbidden array. I can't go out. Quickly, fellow Taoist Celestial, come and help. Fellow Taoists, you all go and take a look. After sending the sound transmission, Xiao Hua opened his illusion breaker eye again and activated his flying technique to fly into the flaming clouds. Sure enough, when Xiao Hua's figure fell into the flaming clouds, those clouds were like cotton wool. They could be scattered but they would not shatter. Xiao Hua's flying figure was entangled by the scattered clouds, and when more clouds were entangled around Xiao Hua's body, Xiao Hua once again felt that it was difficult to move. Humph. Xiao Hua sneered and closed his illusion breaker eye. What he saw with his naked eye was still a pitch-black night sky. Not long after, the Celestial flew over with the Kunlun mirror and shouted, "Fellow Taoist, don't worry, I'll help you." With that, the Celestial was about to take out the white bones. "Don't be anxious." Xiao Hua raised his hand to stop the Celestial and said, "Eyes lightning hand can't even tear apart this inexplicable forbidden array. I'm afraid that your Celestial's white bones won't be enough." "Hee, that's true." The Celestial being smiled foolishly and nodded. "That's all I have. You know all about it. Just tell me what you want me to do." How's your refining of the 10,000 extinguishing heavenly dipper?" Xiao Hua narrowed his eyes, raised his hand to signal the Celestial to give him the Kunlun mirror, and then asked. The Celestial gave the Kunlun mirror to Xiao Hua and said, "The 10,000 extinguishing heavenly dipper is the Celestial race's heaven artifact. Although I have the method to repair and refine it, it has only been a few decades and can't be fully completed. However, even if the 10,000 extinguishing heavenly dipper is completely repaired, I'm afraid it's useless to break this restriction." Xiao Hua took the Kunlun mirror and first stored Chunzong into the Shenhua continent. This time, he was relieved and nodded. "Fellow Taoist is right. The 10,000 extinguishing heavenly dipper is used for fighting. If it's used for breaking restrictions, it's useless." Seeing that Xiao Hua was neither anxious nor slow, the Celestial understood and said with a smile, "So fellow Taoist already has a method to break the restriction. You called me over just because you're worried?" "Indeed." Xiao Hua nodded and said, "I have 2 ways to break the seal, but I don't know which one is useful." "Fellow Taoist, hurry up and break the seal," the Celestial said with a smile. "I'm rather curious. Who would dare to besiege Longevity Town at this time? There are supreme beings from the Immortal Palace, Thunder Temple, Great Holy Hall, and Fortune Gate here." Who else could it be?" Xiao Hua sneered. At this moment, even if he used his heel to think, he knew who was behind this. Who on this hidden immortal continent has such strength? No way. Xiao Hua thought in his heart, and did not hide it from Heaven Man. Heaven Man immediately exclaimed, "It's actually the 4 great families? Aren't they? Aren't they setting up a formation at Dawn and Dusk Cliff to fight against my Fortune Gate? How could they have set up such a large restrictive formation in the Longevity Town? Right now, we can't be sure if it's one of the 4 great families." At this time, Xiao Hua didn't seem to be particularly anxious to break the array. Instead, he asked with a smile, "However, I have 70% confidence. Fellow Celestial, do you still remember the 2 doubts I had in the Fortune Dao Palace?" Heaven Man slapped his own forehead and laughed, "I understand now. Fellow Taoist, you suspected that the 4 great families didn't use their full strength that day. So they were just deliberately mystifying things at Dawn and Dusk Cliff to attract our attention and also the Immortal Palace's attention. They made that old man Gauchen think that the 4 great families were here to steal Wen Chu's 5 Qi unification art, but in reality, their target was the Longevity Town. Their goal was Immortal Emperor Gauchen." "Yes." Xiao Hua nodded. "If I'm not mistaken, the 4 great families have been setting up this Longevity Town for many years. It might even have started after the Sutra Seeking Extreme Bliss began. They knew that when the Sutra Seeking Extreme Bliss ended, Immortal Emperor Gauchen would definitely leave the Immortal Palace and come to the Longevity Town. They set up a formation here to take Immortal Emperor Gao Chen's life or take his position. In order to not arouse Immortal Emperor Gao Chen's suspicion, they had placed an army of 900,000 at Chaomuya. Now, Immortal Emperor Gao Chen had fallen for their trap and easily left the palace to come to hidden Immortal continent. We are just fish in the moat caught in a fire at the city gates. Damn it, the four great families are too cunning. Heaven Man was speechless. At this time, Wen Chu's voice sounded in their minds. That is indeed the case. There's also a strange wave coming from the east of Longevity Town, filling up the space. I can see it with my divine sense and clear eyes technique, but I can't pass through. As for what the wave looks like, I can't see it clearly. Wen Chu then smiled and said, Fellow Immortal Shao, do you still want to break the restriction now? What's wrong with me? Break what restriction now? Shao Hua smiled. This is the time to threaten Gao Chen, old man. If we don't seize this opportunity, how will we know where the Heaven's Punishment Prison Crystal is? As for that six-eared macaque, it doesn't matter when we kill him. Plus, I didn't promise him to find that mysterious person. If I am not happy, I will just kill him. Shao Hua's body flashed, and he brought the Heaven Man to where Wen Chu was. At this time, the eastern sky was filled with immortal generals. These immortal generals used their own divine abilities, wanting to rush out. Unfortunately, they could only fly out a few miles before they were blocked by the space. It was difficult for them to take another step. Seeing Shao Hua come over, Sun Jian hurried forward to greet him. Shao Hua nodded and opened his delusion breaker Dharma eye. He saw that in the horizon, there were golden lotuses shining with dazzling golden light. They were like layers of clouds that covered the entire heaven and earth. All of the immortal generals were trapped in these golden lotus clouds. Hee hee. Shao Hua laughed coldly and turned to fly to the north. Sun Jian hurriedly called out, Master Shao Lei, did you find anything? Oh. Shao Hua asked curiously. Don't you have the void breaker eyes? Can't you see it? Junior's void breaker eyes are most useful for breaking the seal of the void. Junior tried to open it just now, but the void is blocked. Junior's void breaker eyes can't open it. Sun Jian answered honestly. When Shao Hua heard that, he thought of something. His expression changed slightly, and he immediately took out the Kunlun mirror. As expected, the Kunlun mirror's light beam fell into the void, and the void was empty. There was no spatial passage that he expected to be born. Damn it! Shao Hua cursed and hurriedly urged his soul consciousness. He wanted to see the Black Wind Ridge's teleportation formation, which was not too far from here. Unfortunately, he still couldn't discover the Black Wind Ridge even though he had released his soul awareness more than 10,000 miles away. He couldn't discover the teleportation formation either. Shao Hua knew that Taoist witches going south, going north was probably going to lose its effect in this forbidden formation. Then, he thought for a moment and asked, General Sun, who do you think this mysterious formation is? Sun Jian answered without hesitation. If it's not the four great families, then it's the 100 schools of thought. Even if it's the 100 schools of thought, it's still instigated by the four great families. And, this old man thinks so too. Shao Hua nodded. You should hurry and report to old man Gao Chen. Tell him to wash his neck clean and wait. Sun Jian's expression changed, but he still respectfully said, Junior understands. Junior will go report to him right now. Seeing Sun Jian and Tai Bai Jinxing leave in a hurry, Shao Hua didn't delay and went to the north of Longevity Town. In the northern sky, Saint Peng and Saint Phoenix, the two great saints of the demon race, saw Shao Hua appear. Saint Peng came to greet him. Shao Hua helped Sage Peng up and asked, Sage Peng, did you find anything strange? Of course. The Golden Rock sneered. This is the work of those old bald donkeys from the Thunder Temple. No wonder Mahavarakana didn't come, he set up this formation outside. Thunder Temple? Mahavarakana? Shao Hua was a little confused and asked, why does Sage Peng say that? This void is filled with the light of relics. No matter how I use my flying technique, I can't break through this light. The golden rock pointed to the distant sky and said. Phoenix Wu looked at Xiao Hua and said, Sage Peng and this sage have already tried, but we didn't succeed. I think. Fellow Daoist's lightning escape technique also can't succeed. Xiao Hua turned pale with fright. He asked, Is Phoenix Sage sure? After all, Xiao Hua's lightning escape technique had once been close to breaking through the limit of time law in Star Moon Palace. How could it not break through this restriction? Previously, he and the Celestial had patted their chests with confidence. One was the Kunlun mirror, and the other was naturally this lightning escape technique. Basically, I'm sure. Phoenix Wu nodded. If fellow Daoist doesn't believe me, you can try. Xiao Hua naturally wouldn't try now. He only opened his delusion breaker eyes. Sure enough, as the golden rock said, his eyes were filled with the light of relics. There were no other colors. Hiss. Xiao Hua pinched his chin and thought to himself, could this really be the work of the Thunder Sound Temple? Why do they want to use this restriction formation? Other than the Immortal Palace and the Great Sage Hall, there's only my Fortune Gate and the so-called Sky-Bearing Palace. Could it be? They want to destroy my Taoism? Thinking of this, Xiao Hua's face turned cold. He instantly teleported to the western sky. At this time, the east wind broke through the dawn. The warm sunlight pierced through the darkness, and the western sky was still a little white. When Xiao Hua saw Nanwu Wisdom Manjushri leading a group of guardian heavenly kings, arhats, and vajras to break through the restriction formation, Xiao Hua's suspicion disappeared. If the Buddhism sect had laid down a restriction formation, the Dipankara archaic Buddha and Nanwu Wisdom Manjushri would definitely be the first to leave the formation. Why would they stay here as hostages for no reason? Of course, this didn't eliminate the possibility that the Buddhism sect was trying to hide something. Greetings, senior apprentice brother. Nanwu Wisdom Manjushri hurriedly greeted Xiao Hua. You're too polite, Bodhisattva. Xiao Hua hurriedly helped Manjushri up and said, It's better to call me Sandalwood, donate it, and thank you for all your support. Chapter 46-41. However, Nanwu Wisdom Manjushri shook his head and said, Since senior brother has attained the fruit of Nanwu Merciful Avalokitesvara Bodhisattva, you are a Bodhisattva of Lane Temple. Perhaps you don't want to rebuild your Buddha body in Lane Temple, but you are still my senior brother. Sigh. Fine. Xiao Hua waved his hand and said helplessly, Do whatever you want. I won't go to Lane Temple. Anything will do. Go to Lane Temple? Manjushri Bodhisattva was stunned for a moment, then he smiled and said, Senior brother, you misunderstood me. That is to listen respectfully in front of Mahavirakana World Venerable. It is a blessing that hundreds of millions of bodhisattvas can't get. Xiao Hua did not know whether to laugh or cry. He finally understood why he suddenly attained the fruit of Avalokitesvara Bodhisattva. When he collected the water from Liao River in Longevity Town, he almost attained the fruit. The virtues he obtained were not only the power of faith from the people in Longevity Town, but also the virtues of spreading good seeds across Xiaoyu continent. Later on, Buddha Subhuti appeared out of nowhere. Buddha Subhuti was Xiao Hua's Buddhist avatar. Therefore, all the merits fell on Buddha Subhuti. When Xiao Hua entered the ruins by mistake and obtained Nanwu Maitreya's relics and virtues, he even sacrificed himself for the people in the ruins. His virtues had long surpassed the fruit of Bodhisattva. When Xiao Hua and Buddha Bodhi were teleported back to Great Snow Mountain, Jing Lu, cut off her long-cherished wish and attained the fruit of Buddha Bodhi. At this time, Buddha Bodhi was still Xiao Hua, but Nanwu Maitreya Buddha was different from Xiao Hua. When Wen Chu became a human being, Demon Lord became a demon, and Reverend Yun became a dragon, Nanwu Maitreya Buddha had also changed. Xiao Hua did not know whether he had become a human being or not, but he knew that Nanwu Maitreya Buddha had returned the virtues that belonged to Xiao Hua's original body. Therefore, when he was in Longevity Town, Xiaohua accidentally and inevitably attained the fruit of Nanwa merciful Avalokitesvara Bodhisattva in front of Liao River, which had not attained the fruit of Buddha over 400 years ago. Of course, the fruit of Buddha was a touch of light on the golden body of Bodhisattva, but on Xiaohua's body, it was just some light on the Godhead. Light. Let's talk about this later. Xiaohua looked at the serious Manjushri Bodhisattva and replied, previously, because of Jinkong's matter, Xiao. Brother Zhao's tone was a bit unkind. I hope junior brother can understand. Hearing Xiaohua calling himself brother and calling himself junior brother, Manjushri was overjoyed. He hurriedly put his palms together and said, Amitabha, this is the fault of Lane Temple. When I saw Ananda's incarnation appear, I was also shocked and didn't know what to do. As for the truth and falsehood that this little monk spoke of back then, it was actually the truth. It's just that Jinkong didn't quite understand. After that, Ananda was ruthless. The revered one was also implicated in this matter. It's good that senior martial brother didn't go to the Lane Temple. Speaking of Mahavarakana revered Buddha, Xiaohua sneered, Namo Maitreya Buddha betrayed Lane Temple. Is it related to this matter? This. Manjushri hesitated and said in a low voice, this matter is related to the three Buddhas. I dare not say anything. Now, senior brother is also a bodhisattva. Sometimes, you have to think for Lane Temple. What if I think for small exquisite temple? Xiaohua said with a faint smile. Sigh. Manjushri suddenly thought of something. After a while, he said sincerely, Namo Maitreya Buddha, senior martial brother, Lane Temple and small exquisite temple are one. Senior martial brother can help either one. Also. Xiaohua's heart moved. He asked again, what's the matter with Ananda? Dipankara archaic Buddha didn't say too much. Senior martial brother, don't make things difficult for this little monk. Manjushri said with a bitter face, this is the matter of the Buddhas. How would this little monk know? The most important thing now is to see how to break the restriction. This restriction is really mysterious. If my heaven's foot connection can't work, the other disciples can't either. We have to see senior martial brother's method. Seeing Manjushri like this, Xiaohua didn't force him. He stood still in the air and activated his illusion-breaking Dharma Eye. However, in his Dharma Eye, the western horizon was covered by a layer of white clouds. The clouds covered the entire sky, and the end couldn't be seen. What kind of formation is this? Xiaohua thought and looked at the sky. After all, the places where different clouds touched were usually the weak points of the formation. If he wanted to break the restriction, he could only start from there. Unfortunately, Xiaohua was destined to be disappointed. This was because the area where the white clouds came into contact with the relic scattered light was also a layer of clouds. The layers of clouds were still overlapping each other without any gaps, and there was no flaw to be seen. This is troublesome. Xiaohua stood in the air with a worried expression on his face. He still wanted to use his own divine ability to threaten Immortal Emperor Go-Chen, but seeing that this grand formation was so tight that not even the slightest gap could be found, and even he was trapped here, how could he threaten Immortal Emperor Go-Chen? Senior martial brother. Seeing that Xiaohua didn't speak, Manjushri asked tentatively, this restriction. Junior martial brother, you should go and ask the Dipankara archaic Buddha. Xiaohua waved his hand angrily, senior martial brother's talent is shallow. I have just touched the threshold of the Thunder Sound Temple, and I have never seen such a mysterious restriction before. Manjushri was helpless and could only order the Buddhas to guard the west side while he flew back to the River Tide Temple. Xiaohua pondered for a moment and shook the Kunlun mirror, mobilizing 40,000 Fortune Gate disciples. 20,000 guarded the north side of the Longevity Town, and 20,000 guarded the south side of the Longevity Town to prevent any changes to the mysterious formation. Then, Xiaohua turned to look at Wen Chu and the Heavenly Man, and asked in a low voice, I've seen it again. What do you think? It's difficult. Wen Chu shook his head, and the Heavenly Man shrugged, expressing his helplessness. However, Just as Xiao Hua was about to speak, Wen Chu's eyes suddenly lit up, and he said with a smile, "This old man remembers 2 of your abilities. It should be useful." Since Wen Chu thought of it, Xiao Hua naturally thought of it too. He smiled bitterly and said, "One is to forcefully activate the lightning escape art. Although Feng Wu has already tried it, he didn't go to the Star Moon Palace, so he doesn't know the profoundness of the lightning escape art. However, don't forget, when the lightning escape art is pushed to the extreme, the last bit of the clear feather pill's medicinal efficacy will be activated. I might ascend to the heavens." "Huh, so fellow Taoist wants to ascend? That's a good idea. Under the laws of heaven and earth, all restrictive arrays will lose their effectiveness. We can naturally leave." The heavenly man laughed. "Currently, I don't want to ascend to the heavens." Xiao Hua rubbed his nose and replied, "Moreover, why would I do these things that harm myself for no reason and let old man Gaochen and old man Hongmeng benefit for nothing? Then we can only rely on." As he spoke, Wen Chu looked at Xiao Hua's left hand. "That's even more unacceptable." Xiao Hua shook his head without hesitation. "Although the Taoist sect has a rift with the Confucian sect and the Buddhist sect, we are still humans. This is a righteous cause. Once the devil blade appears, or the demon venerable murder appears, we will become demons. The Confucian sect is the best at spreading rumors. All our previous efforts will turn into water, and we can only benefit old man Hongmeng." Wen Chu pondered for a moment and nodded. "If that's the case, we can only wait and see. This formation is really strange. Our divine abilities are not affected by the formation at all. Even our divine sense and eye-clearing techniques are not hindered. However, it only prevents us from leaving. This means..." Xiao Hua narrowed his eyes and looked at the floating clouds in the sky. He said, "The person who set up the formation has absolute confidence in trapping us to death. And they haven't revealed their powerful methods yet." As Xiao Hua spoke, he was unwilling to give up. He rushed into the sky and entered the ground. He looked around again, but he still didn't find anything. Only then did he bring Wen Chu, the heavenly man, and the golden-winged Great Peng, Feng Wu, and the others back to the River Tide Temple. Originally, there were many monks in the River Tide Temple. In order to welcome Chuanzang's group and hold a grand ceremony to end the sutra-seeking of nirvana, these monks had gathered around the temple. After Xiao Hua and the primordial chaos ancestor came uninvited, these monks received the abbot's orders and gradually retreated. Now, seeing the strange situation around the Longevity Town, these monks came out from the River Tide Temple and went to various parts of the Longevity Town. They were either comforting the citizens or looking for flaws in the formation. The Dipankara archaic Buddha originally invited Immortal Emperor Gaochen to the River Tide Temple for a chat. However, how could Immortal Emperor Gaochen step foot into a Buddhist temple? He landed on top of the River Tide Temple, and golden radiances appeared out of nowhere, forming the shape of a golden throne. Immortal Emperor Gaochen sat on top of the clouds. Naturally, the Dipankara archaic Buddha sat on top of the 9 grades lotus throne, facing Immortal Emperor Gaochen. Now that the situation had changed, the two of them flew up and sat back down when they saw their disciples flying out. They exchanged a glance, then turned to look at the Jiangqiao Ridge. On the ridge, the sky-bearing palace's Grand Mist ancestor, Taoist rider Crane, and Nyezi were sitting cross-legged. The 3 of them seemed to be meditating and turned a blind eye to the 2 of them. The Gochin Immortal Emperor and the Dipankara archaic Buddha World Lord glanced at the 3 before retracting their gazes. They knew very well that the so-called sky-bearing hall was nothing but a nobody. Only the primordial mist ancestor was worthy of their attention. The primordial chaos ancestor and the other 2 came here with great risk. The primordial chaos ancestor was betting that Xiao Hua didn't know about Prince Lan's matter and that Xiao Hua wouldn't lay his hands on Taoism's cultivators. That was why he only came out after Xiao Hua appeared. They wanted to take advantage of Xiao Hua's Fortune Gates confrontation with the Immortal Palace, Thunder Monastery, and Great Sage Hall to show off their prowess. This kind of trickery was different from Xiao Hua's method of advancing step by step. It was merely a method, and not strength. Therefore, the two of them were certain that the strange changes around the Longevity Town were not the Grand Mist Ancestors' doing. Give it a recommendation vote, bookmark it, tip it, and thank you for all your support. Chapter 46-42. Not long after, Sun Jian and Tai Bai Jinxing returned. They didn't hide anything and told the Dipankara archaic Buddha about the Longevity Town situation, as well as the myriad golden lotus blossoms that Xiao Hua saw with his delirium dharma eye. Hearing that Xiao Hua could see through the void, the Grand Mist Ancestor's body trembled slightly, and he couldn't help opening his eyes. Daoist Rider Crane and Nyezi also opened their eyes. The three of them exchanged a glance, and the complicated expression in their eyes became even more complicated. Manjushri Bodhisattva came back and told him about the situation in the west. Immortal Emperor Gaochen seemed to have thought of something and was surprised to hear that there were only white clouds in the west. The Thunderbolt Immortal wasn't with Hong Meng Ancestor and the others. Instead, he was sitting cross-legged on the Liao River opposite the Jiangchao Ridge. His gaze was sharp as lightning as he looked at the people on the Jiangchao Ridge. After listening to Sun Jian and Manjushri's words, he subconsciously looked down at the Liao River below him. He waved his hand and a streak of lightning turned into a fish and swam down the river. Unfortunately, it was only a short moment before the lightning was obstructed in the distance and couldn't float away in the slightest. Looking at the river water again, although it was still flowing slowly, the torrential momentum was long gone. Whether it was the river water or the fish, when they reached the place where the lightning was obstructed, they all stopped and slowly flowed back. Damn it, natural elemental energy. Seeing how the water flow was acting, Reverend Thunderbolt immediately thought of the natural elemental energy. He hastily released his divine sense to check the surroundings. Thankfully, the natural elemental energy within a radius of 500 li was still abundant. It was not obstructed by the restrictive array. When Thunderbolt Sage was inspecting, Xiao Hua and the rest had already returned. He looked at Immortal Emperor Gaochen and the rest before sitting cross-legged in the sky to the south of the tidal river temple. Celestial Being and Wen Chu naturally sat beside him. The golden-winged rock and Feng Wu sat on the north side. The golden-winged great rock's gaze was like lightning. He looked at everyone and explained the situation of the Sarira lights in the north. Then, he stared at the Dipankara archaic Buddha and coldly said, "Old man Dipankara, what else do you have to say? Apart from your Buddhist sect's Buddhist artifacts, which other item has Sarira light? How could it be so powerful? You must have fallen into the trap of the Mahavairakana revered Buddha, right?" Amitabha. The Dipankara archaic Buddha pressed his palms together and said, "How can the likes of you understand the intentions of the World Lord? Although the world is big, it can't compare to even 1% of the Venerable One's mercy." Master Xiao Lei. Immortal Emperor Gochen calmly asked, "Where is the southwest of Longevity Town?" Immortal Emperor Gaochen lowered his head again after hearing Xiao Hua's explanation of the southern flaming clouds and his failure. The Grand Mist Ancestor pondered for a moment, then said, "I have some doubts after hearing Tao Master Zhao's words, but I don't know if they are true or false. I hope Tao Master Xiao can correct me. Please speak, fellow Taoist primordial chaos." Hearing the Grand Mist Ancestor's rare humility, Xiao Hua was a little surprised. He looked at the Grand Mist Ancestor from head to toe and chuckled. The Grand Mist Ancestor coughed and said, "First, I feel that this is a premeditated ambush, and it has been planned for a long time." Nonsense. The Lightning Taoist did not give face to the Grand Mist Ancestor and said coldly, "Everyone knows this. Do I need you to tell me that?" "Hee, fellow Taoist Thunder, don't worry." The Grand Mist Ancestor smiled faintly and said, "What I mean is, since this is something that has been planned for a long time, then this ambush has a purpose. This purpose is definitely the few forces that will participate in the sutra seeking extreme bliss. My sky-bearing palace and fortune gate. Coming to Longevity Town is definitely not something they would expect. Their target should be the Great Sage Hall, Immortal Palace, or Lightning Tune Temple. The lightning Taoist snorted and said, "Is there even a need to say this?" The Grand Mist Ancestor ignored the lightning Taoist and said, "How many forces on the 3 continents can contend against the Great Sage Hall, Immortal Palace, and Lightning Tune Temple? Dragon Island? Fortune Gate? Sky-bearing Palace?" The lightning Taoist was about to scold the Grand Mist Ancestor for being shameless, but Xiao Hua stopped him in his heart. The Grand Mist Ancestor continued, "Since Tao Master Xiao and I are here, the Fortune Gate and Sky-bearing Palace should be eliminated. Then there is only the Dragon Island." "Damn it!" Zhenfeng shouted angrily from afar, "Grand Mist Ancestor, are you trying to slander us because our dragon race isn't here? I am the Eastern Sea Dragon Palace's 10th Prince Ah. Now, I am the 8th Division Heavenly Dragon. If you continue to spout nonsense, don't blame me for being impolite. If it's the Dragon Island, then who is the Dragon Island's target? How could the Grand Mist Ancestor care about Zhenfeng?" He continued to analyze, "Then it can only be the Great Sage Hall. Of course, if the other great sages of the Great Sage Hall are dissatisfied with the Great Sage Peng and Great Sage Hall, they will probably take action. However, I feel that if they want to deal with the Great Sage Hall, they should not target the Longevity Hall, but the road from the Great Sage Hall to the Longevity Town. There is no need for the Dragon Island to involve the Immortal Palace and Lightning Tune Temple. Then what does fellow Grand Mist Ancestor mean? After talking for so long, why can't I hear anything?" Xiao Hua asked. "I am only reminding you that there is a purpose to this ambush. Other than the 3 continents' superpowers, what else is there? Are there other hidden forces?" The Grand Mist Ancestor hinted. Xiao Hua's heart skipped a beat as he seemed to understand the Grand Mist Ancestor's meaning. The corner of his mouth curled up into a cold sneer as he asked in a low voice, "Grand Mist Ancestor, can you say it clearly?" "Xingyue." The Grand Mist Ancestor looked provocatively at Xiao Hua as he said each word clearly. "You deserve to die." Xiao Hua's heart was burning with anger. Thinking about how Su Ji had treated him well in the Star Moon Palace, then thinking about how Su Ji had blocked him, not allowing him to make things difficult for the Grand Mist Ancestor, then thinking about what Su Ji had not said. What he had done for the Grand Mist Ancestor in the past. Xiao Hua jumped up from the cloud and said loudly, "Since Taoist Grand Mist has said this, then this Xiao has no choice but to say it. Xingyue has belonged to my Fortune Gate ever since the Xingyue Palace appeared. Whoever dares to have any ideas about Xingyue, don't blame my Fortune Gate for being impolite." Ah! Everyone was stunned, and the Grand Mist Ancestor was even more shocked. He hurriedly said, "Io, fellow Taoist Xiao, congratulations, congratulations, this seat has been rude. This seat was just discussing the matter as it is, but I didn't expect that the flood would rush to the Dragon King's temple, and we don't recognize each other anymore. It seems like this seat's deduction was wrong." Ah. At this point, the Grand Mist Ancestor asked curiously, "That's right, fellow Taoist Xiao, this seat is a little presumptuous to ask, where is the original owner of Xingyue?" Xiao Hua replied snappily, "Fellow Taoist need not worry about that. Their whereabouts have nothing to do with you." "That's good, that's good." Although Xiao Hua did not answer directly, the Grand Mist Ancestor seemed to be relieved and smiled exceptionally brightly. "Damn it, do you have anything else to say?" The celestial being was also annoyed by the Grand Mist Ancestor's words and shouted loudly. Of course. The Grand Mist Ancestor's purpose was naturally to find out the whereabouts of Fairy Xingyue and Su Ji. Secondly, it was the ownership of the star-plucking tower. In order to avoid suspicion, how could he not have other methods? He agreed and said, "Since Xingyue is not the owner, then it should be the other hidden forces in the 3 continents. Among these forces, the most famous one is also the most likely. There is no need for this seat to say more. Immortal Emperor Go Chen must know." "Humph." Immortal Emperor Go Chen snorted coldly and did not say anything else. The Grand Mist Ancestor continued, other than some clues from the purpose, there are also some clues from the method used to set up the formation. This seat has not seen this formation before, but from the strange phenomenon that Taoist Shao saw with my Tao Gate's divine ability, this formation should be divided into 4 different great formations according to the 4 directions of heaven and earth. Each great formation should have an array disc or array flag. In this world, to be able to set up 4 great formations of the same power at the same time, I'm afraid that only the 4 great clans of the hidden immortal continent can do so. Didn't the 4 great clans just get beaten to a pulp by the Fortune Gate at the Day and Day Cliff? The golden-winged Great Peng frowned and said, how could they have the strength to set up formations here? Xiao Hua smiled bitterly and said, you may not know, Sage Peng, but the 4 great clans gathered 900,000 disciples to confront my Fortune Gate at the Day and Day Cliff. My Fortune Gate killed more than 300,000 of them and captured more than 500,000 of them. It is not good for me to kill these 500,000 disciples, but it is also not good for me to keep them alive. In the end, I simply let them go. Soft-hearted. The golden-winged Great Peng didn't seem to regard Xiao Hua as an outsider. He blamed Xiao Hua and said, if you had killed all of them back then, how could today's disaster have happened? Amitabha. The Dipankara archaic Buddha, who had been silent all this while, stood up and clasped his palms together. Namo Great Compassionate Great Guanyin Bodhisattva, previously, this seat had been brooding over your attainment of karma. From the looks of it now, you truly deserved it. This seat apologizes to you. Ah. Amitabha. Xiao Hua could only stand up and clasped his palms together in a familiar manner. Dipankara archaic Buddha, seat of the world, you are too serious. It doesn't matter if I have attained karma or not, as long as I am merciful in my heart. If I wasn't forced into a corner, I wouldn't even be willing to kill those 300,000 disciples. Xiao Hua's words were naturally directed at the Gochen Immortal Emperor. He didn't know if the Dipankara archaic Buddha was aware of this. However, he still said, we Buddhists emphasize on being merciful. However, we Buddhists still have thunderous methods to subdue devils. For the sake of Buddhism's peace, we have no choice but to stain ourselves with blood. After the Dipankara archaic Buddha sat down, the golden-winged Great Peng suddenly realized something and shouted, oh, Dragon Master Shao, this sage suddenly realized that you are not only the Dragon Master of the Dragon Island, but also the Thunder Master of the Immortal Palace. Now, you are even the Namo Great Compassionate Great Guanyin Bodhisattva. Oh, you are also good friends with my rock sage. The Star Moon Lord again. Oh my. You. Aren't you the number 1 person of the 3 continents? Don't forget, Thunder Master Shao is also good friends with my Immortal Palace's Literature Palace Lord. The Gochen Immortal Emperor said with a faint tone, from what I know, when the Namo Maitreya Buddha attained karma, he also witnessed it on the Great Snow Mountain. Thank you for all your support. Chapter 46-43. At this moment, the Dipankara archaic Buddha World Lord also spoke. Since he's the Namo Great Merciful Vidyalaya Bodhisattva, he must have the world in his heart. I support such a person becoming the number 1 expert of the 3 continents. The Mahavirakana World Lord also supports him. My sky-bearing palace also supports him. The primordial chaos ancestor hurriedly yelled. Xiao Hua waved his hand, everyone, you're wrong. Let's discuss how to break the restriction first. If it's really the setup of the 4 great families, this restriction is no small matter. I've studied the Tao of formations of Taoism in the past. The primordial chaos ancestor smiled. If you want to break the formation, you must first know what kind of formation it is, what are the formation plates and flags used to set it up, and where is the formation core. Only when you have a clear understanding of the formation can you truly break it. According to Taoist primordial chaos, what kind of formation is this? What are the formation plates used to set it up? And where is the core of the formation? Xiao Hua asked with a smile when they talked about the formation. The primordial chaos ancestor felt a little guilty and chuckled. This must be the defensive formation of the Confucian cultivators. That's not something I can know. Damn it. The heavenly being shouted, after listening for so long, "You're still spouting nonsense. Sigh, does your disciple know what kind of nonsense you're spouting every day? Damn it." The primordial chaos ancestor was a little embarrassed. He glanced at the heavenly being and cursed inwardly. There was a moment of silence on the Jiangchao temple. Suddenly, a whirling breeze descended from the sky. Everyone looked up and saw that in the blue sky, the sun was high up in the sky. There seemed to be a circle of light that was visible to the naked eye, slowly sliding down. Xiao Hua was shocked. He hurriedly used his divine sense to scan the area, but nothing happened. Not even a spatial ripple appeared, let alone any fluctuations. However, this halo of light was like a heavy boulder in everyone's heart. No one knew what this light thread was used for. This kind of mystery was more frightening than any other method. Your Majesty. The Dipankara archaic Buddha world lord retracted his gaze and looked at Immortal Emperor Go Chen. These 4 defensive formations. Have you seen them before? I haven't seen them before. Immortal Emperor Go Chen calmly replied, moreover, I feel that these 4 formations are not the defensive formations of Confucian cultivators. Xiao Hua sneered, if it's not a defensive array, could it be my Tao sect's array? Could it be the Buddhism formation of the Buddhism sect? The golden-winged great rock looked at the Dipankara archaic Buddha world lord and probed. The Grand Mist ancestor rubbed his chin thoughtfully. It could also be the demonic beast race's demonic array. Amitabha, there's no need to guess anymore. The Dipankara archaic Buddha, the world exalt, said, I don't know what kind of formation this is. However, I seem to have some impression of the scattered Sarira lights mentioned by the Guanyin Bodhisattva. Oh. Revered one of the world, please speak. Xiao Hua hastily asked. Unfortunately, the Dipankara archaic Buddha did not answer him directly. Instead, he looked at the Immortal Emperor Go Chen and asked, Did you not notice anything, Your Majesty? Immortal Emperor Gao Chen smiled, Of course I know what I see. I'm sure you know what you see as well, right? Amitabha. Seeing how the Dipankara archaic Buddha world lord refused to speak, he could only say, Since Your Majesty doesn't want to say, I'll just have to embarrass myself. According to my Thunder Monastery's records, before the Immortals and Buddhas joined forces to destroy the Tao, 5 flags appeared on the 3 great continents. They were known as the earlier Heaven 5 Elements flags. According to legend, these 5 Elements flags were formed from the 5 petals of the chaotic green lotus. They are all supreme-grade early heaven treasures. The Eastern treasured flag is known as the Green Lotus flag. It can calm one's heart, repel all evils, and be invulnerable to all arts. The Eastern treasured flag emits the scattered Sarira lights. These scattered Sarira lights are similar to my Buddhism sect's scattered Sarira lights, yet there are some differences. I don't know what the differences are, because I've never seen this Green Lotus flag before. If the Guanyin Bodhisattva didn't mention the scattered Sarira lights, I wouldn't have remembered this story. SSS. Hearing the Dipankara archaic Buddha world lord mention the 5 elements flags, Xiao Hua instantly thought of the mystic origin water control flag he had obtained in the profound water palace. He couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air as he thought, that day in the profound water palace, Xin revealed the origin of the mystic origin water control flag. She said that it came from the immortal world and was used to suppress the devil saber murder in the profound water palace. The immortal world she mentioned must be the heavenly court. I've only seen the might of the mystic origin water control flag and don't fully understand it. However, I'm well aware of how powerful the devil saber murder is. That's a devilish saber that even the devil lords of the ruins feared. Yet, it was suppressed by the mystic origin water control flag. If this mystic origin water control flag is one of the 5 elements flags, then the other 4 5 elements flags that form these 4 formations aren't something I can deal with. Even if I summon my devilish saber, I won't be able to do anything. Thinking of this, Xiao Hua hurriedly asked, World Lord, the other 4 5 elements flags. What are their names? What's so powerful about them? Amitabha. The cultivation of Buddhism isn't about Buddhism formations, but about the heart. If it weren't for the Sarira lights on the green lotus flag, I wouldn't have known about it. Therefore, I don't know about the other 4-5 elements flags. The Dipankara archaic Buddha world lord didn't know if he really didn't know or if he was faking it. He only pushed this question to Immortal Emperor Go-Chen. I'm afraid I can only ask your majesty about this. Humph. Xiao Hua snorted and looked at Immortal Emperor Go-Chen. Even Xian knew about the origin of the mystic origin water control flag. How could Immortal Emperor Go-Chen not know about it? Unfortunately, Immortal Emperor Go-Chen still shook his head. Why must I know if the earlier Heaven 5 Elements flags don't belong to my immortal palace? What? Your Majesty doesn't know about it if it doesn't belong to the immortal palace? Xiao Hua narrowed his eyes and asked calmly. Oh, if that's the case, this sage finally remembered. The golden-winged great rock suddenly cried out. The Great Sage Hall has records of something called the Khanate Pentagonal Formation. This formation is neither a Dharma formation nor a demonic formation, much less an imperial formation or a Buddhist formation. The pentagonal formation is set up by 5 Khanate flags. These 5 flags possess boundless power and are used to protect one's body. All evil will be repelled, and all magic will be impenetrable. Let this sage think. The central flag is called the Yellow Earth Apricot Flag? Yes, it's called the Yellow Earth Apricot Flag. When this Yellow Earth Apricot Flag is activated, nothing can break through it. All evils will be repelled, and no arts will be able to invade it. Yes, it seems to be called the 10,000 Golden Lotuses. It's very similar to what Longsha Xiao saw in the east of Longevity Town. What about the others? Xiao Hua asked. The golden-winged great rock shrugged and shook his head. This sage can't remember the others. This sage only took a casual glance. But then, the golden-winged great rock looked at Immortal Emperor Go-Chen and said, Go-Chen, it is said that the earlier Heaven 5 Elements flag was obtained by a Confucian sage. Later on, it was controlled by the human race and eventually lost to the hidden immortal continent. Could it be that you don't know about it? Humph. Immortal Emperor Go-Chen coldly snorted and said, My Confucian sage has many sages. I don't know who Sage Peng is talking about. Moreover, my immortal palace has never had any records about this. However, if you are talking about the earlier Heaven 5 Elements flag, this emperor doesn't know everything. I only know that the southern flag is called the Floating Flame Flag. This flag confuses yin and yang, reverses the 5 elements, repels all evils, and is impenetrable by all arts. When it is activated, the flames are like clouds and can conceal the 5 elements. The western flag is called the White Cloud Boundary Flag. This flag has a dense and mysterious image that illuminates the heaven and earth, repels all evils, and is impenetrable by all arts. When it is activated, the clouds float and the heaven and earth change colors. As for the northern flag, this emperor doesn't know. Damn it, you are still being secretive even at this time. Xiao Hua was very disdainful of Go-Chen's character and secretly cursed. However, he wasn't sure if the mystic origin water control flag was the northern flag, so he couldn't say anything. Wen Chu frowned and said, If it is as you all said, then this immortal town is surrounded by the 5 Elements Grand Formation. However, this 5 Elements Grand Formation is missing the northern flag, so it can't be considered complete. We should have a chance. Immortal friend Wen Chu is looking down on this 5 Elements Grand Formation too much. The golden-winged Great Peng shook his head and said, You should know that this 5 Elements Grand Formation is called the Innate 5 Elements Grand Formation. Not to mention the 5 innate 5 elements flags acting as the eye of the formation, no one in the 3 continents can break it. Just the innate 5 elements flag alone is not a match for Immortal Friend. At this time, Wen Chu glanced at Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua had already told him about the mystic origin water control flag. After hearing this, Wen Chu's expression unconsciously changed. After all, he was very clear about the power of the Devil's Saber murder. If that's the case, then this formation without the northern flag should be called the innate four elements grand formation. Immortal Emperor Gaochen said, at this time, I don't need to say anything more. Everyone should know who is scheming against us, right? Gaochen. The golden-winged Great Peng shrieked, is there still a need to say it? The innate four elements grand formation is spread out in all directions and sealed off the immortal town. Apart from the four great clans, who else could it be? However, the one they are scheming against is probably you, right? Immortal Emperor Gaochen laughed and said, is there a difference? Could it be that Sage Peng is not inside the formation? This sage is naturally inside the formation. However, even if we are both inside the formation, we are different, right? The golden-winged Great Peng replied without hesitation, the four great clans are coveting the immortal palace's throne. This innate five elements grand formation is known as the number one defensive formation in the world. It is even more powerful than Daoist Zhao's capital star formation. The four great clans have trapped you here, so they must have already killed their way to the immortal palace. Damn it. Immortal Emperor Gaochen cursed inwardly when his thoughts were exposed by the golden-winged Great Peng. He then looked at Xiaohua and said, Master Xiaohua, you should be more vigilant now. Previously, you fought against the four great clans at Chaomuya. This time, you are trapped in the immortal town. Who knows, the Nangong family might attack your soaring dragon mountain range first. Hearing Immortal Emperor Gaochen mention Chaomuya again, Xiaohua's anger surged. He sneered coldly, Old man Gaochen, Sage Peng is not afraid of the four great clans attacking the Great Holy Hall. Do you think this Xiao is afraid of the Nangong family surrounding my fortune gate? This Xiao will put my words here. If Nangong Tianji dares to go, this Xiao can guarantee that he won't be able to keep his head. As for your majesty, shouldn't you tell this Xiao where the New Heaven's punishment prison crystal is being kept? Otherwise, this Xiao will make a move before the innate four elements grand formation, gift it, and thank you for all your support. Chapter 46-44. Motherfucker, speak. At this time, the Celestial also shouted arrogantly, otherwise, I will pull you down from the throne. The rock chuckled and added, Gaochen, I saw that you were scheming before, but you're still a lord of a region. You're still broad-minded. That's why I'll accept any invitations you have unless it's something special. But now, it seems that everything you've done doesn't match your status as the Lord of Immortal Palace. Daoist Xiao is a human grand ascension stage, a dragon among men. He's so broad-minded that even I want to befriend him. Why don't you like him? The ninth princess was wrong earlier, but Daoist Xiao gave you enough face in the battle against Chaomuya. If you still don't give him face, then don't blame me for not giving you any face. Hee, how can taking advantage of a burning house be a gentleman's style? Immortal Emperor Gaochen didn't care about the rock's threat and said flatly, Sacred Peng, do you think I'm afraid of these idiots? Moreover, I also believe that Master Xiao Lei's words were just words of anger. He will definitely consider the big picture and help the master of the School of Literature to break the four directions formation. Because if something happens to me, then no one will know about it. Xiaohua looked at Immortal Emperor Go Chen's face that was covered by the light. He also couldn't see Immortal Emperor Go Chen's expression, but Xiaohua knew that under the light, it was definitely a complacent expression. Immortal Emperor Go Chen was the only person who knew the whereabouts of the Heaven Punishment Prison Crystal. Unless he decided to break off relations with the Immortal Palace and search every inch of the hidden Immortal Continent, he really couldn't casually make a move. Xiaohua took a deep breath and said coldly, Your Majesty controls the fate of all Confucian cultivators in the world. How can you not have a way to destroy the schemes of the four clans? Oh, and where's your golden throne? All Confucian cultivators in the world will bow before the throne. Your Majesty, you should act quickly. If I could bring the throne down from Immortal Palace, would Dongfang Qianghao and the others still dare to set up this formation in Immortal Town? Immortal Emperor Gaochen sneered. They only dare to use their brains when I leave Immortal Palace. His Majesty doesn't have a golden throne, but he still has the Emperor's sword. Xiao Hua's gaze fell on the Emperor's sword in front of Immortal Emperor Go Chen and said, "If the Emperor's sword doesn't come out, who would dare to use their techniques?" The meaning of Xiao Hua's words was very clear. Even if others wanted to break the seal now, they had to stop and wait for Immortal Emperor Go Chen's Son of Heaven's sword to attack before they dared to try. Humph. Immortal Emperor Go Chen scowled. He knew that the 4 clans were targeting him, so how could he not use his strongest move? However, his plan to use Xiao Hua had failed. Instead, he had been forced here by Xiao Hua. It seemed that he had no choice but to take action. This made him feel very unhappy. Humph, a lazy donkey has a lot of shit and pee on it. Xiao Hua also coldly snorted and secretly criticized in his heart, "At this time, you still want others to help you. You've really gone crazy from scheming all day long. If I were Dongfang Qianghao, I'm afraid I would also flip this guy over." Immortal Emperor Go Chen's body flew up and turned into 1,000 feet tall. He used his golden pupils and scanned the sky. Then, he raised the Emperor's sword. Buzz. With a clear hum, the space within 1,000 miles of Immortal Town began to tremble. Then, pillars of righteous energy appeared in the void. Unfortunately, these pillars of righteous energy only appeared for a moment before disappearing. The void inside the formation was blocked, so the Emperor's sword could only channel a small amount of righteous energy. Boom. Seeing that the righteous energy was no longer there, Immortal Emperor Go Chen's body swayed. The sun and moon above his emperor's armor shined brightly. The dragon that represented the providence of Confucian cultivators stepped on the 5-colored clouds around Immortal Emperor Go Chen and roared as it rushed into the Emperor's sword. Whoosh! A light shadow and righteous energy gushed out from the Emperor's sword. Amidst the cries of dragons and phoenixes, mountains and rivers, cities and countries, men plowing and women weaving, the myriad phenomena of the mortal world, and even the mountains and seas of books were all reflected in this warm sword light. This sword light seemed to be surging with a myriad of sword intents. It was an invincible royal aura that controlled the world. It fell towards the intersection of the golden lotus clouds and the Sarira's light. Boom! Under the Emperor's sword, amidst the explosions, the clear eyes art, the 10,000 golden lotuses, and the Sarira's light that were invisible to the naked eye and divine sense were revealed. Outside of Xiao Hua's expectations, no matter if it was the golden lotuses or the Sarira, under the Emperor's sword intent and sword light, there were no special changes. The boundless images fell into the clouds and the Sarira's light, like a clay ox entering the sea, and disappeared without a trace. The Emperor's sword's body slashed into the gap between the clouds and the Sarira's light, but it also seemed to have fallen into a quagmire. It gradually slowed down, and in the end, it was actually suspended in the air. All kinds of strange images slightly trembled and then went back into the Emperor's sword. Hiss. Sun Jian, on the side, took a deep breath and said, "Even the Emperor's sword couldn't do anything. Who in this world can break this innate 4-cardinal formation?" Previously, there was still a grand qi flowing. Now, the 4-cardinal formation seems to have been activated, and the grand qi pillar within the void has also been isolated. Xiao Hua said calmly, "If I'm not mistaken, the heaven and earth essence qi of our Taoism will also be isolated. Our powers will be greatly reduced." Amitabha. The Dipankara archaic Buddha chanted and flew out. The bitter expression on his face became heavier, and he said, "Let me try. World Lord, your disciples are here to help." Namo Wisdom Manjushri Bodhisattva didn't dare to delay and quickly flew out as well. He stood behind the Dipankara archaic Buddha World Lord, and the other Buddhist protectors and arhats also flew out and stood behind the Manjushri Bodhisattva. Amitabha. The Dipankara archaic Buddha World Lord chanted again. His voice was filled with helplessness, desolation, fading away, and even death. The radiance behind the Dipankara archaic Buddha World Lord's head shone brightly. Within the radiance, the power of faith flowed like a river. However, just like when the Emperor's sword was activated, the power of faith only flowed for a short while before it dried up. It can't be. Sun Jian was dumbfounded. As if he had seen a ghost, he yelled, "The earlier Heaven 4 cardinal formation can even stop the power of faith?" Looking at Sun Jian's shocked expression, he no longer resembled the knowledgeable true Lord Qingyuan. While Sun Jian was still in shock, the radiance behind the Namo Wisdom Manjushri Bodhisattva and the other Buddha's heads shone brightly. The radiance was infused with the power of faith, transforming into Buddhist lights that rushed into the Dipankara archaic Buddha world lord's radiance. Instantly, within 1,000 miles, Sanskrit chants resounded. Heavenly flowers rained down, and a heavenly maiden and a heavenly dragon appeared. However, just like before, the heavenly maiden and heavenly dragon silhouettes appeared and disappeared immediately after. The heavenly flowers fell to the sky, but soon withered. The Sanskrit chants didn't stop, but they didn't have the same momentum as those on the stage. Namo Dipankara Archaic Buddha. The Dipankara archaic Buddha world lord chanted a Buddhist mantra, and a radiant illusory figure emerged from the radiance behind his head, landing within the slabs of light far away. Wherever the radiant illusory figure passed by, darkness would appear. Wisps of radiance would wither into heavenly flowers, and small kiliacosms would be annihilated one after another. The power of death and withering? Xiao Hua narrowed his eyes. He had already noticed something amiss from this Buddhist light. "Oh, there's even the faint flow of time. I understand now." The Dipankara archaic Buddha world lord not only represents the past, but also represents death. The Maitreya Buddha world lord not only represents the future, but also represents rebirth. Only when I've comprehended the Tao of life and death, and when Chu has cultivated the Qi of life, can Buddha Bodhi truly attain fruition. As for the Mahavairakana world lord, not only does he represent the present, but he also represents the boundary between life and death. Shouldn't the Mahavairakana world lord be in control of life and death? As for the pitiful Buddha Bodhi, he's only a future Buddha lord. I'm afraid he'll never become a Buddha. While Xiao Hua was pondering, the Dipankara archaic Buddha world lord's radiant illusory figure had already landed on the slabs of light. Under the radiant illusory figure, thousands of slabs of light flashed, and the radiant illusory figure also disappeared instantly. The space remained the same, and the scenery remained the same. It was even more traceless than a spring dream. While everyone was still in shock, Xiao Hua came to a realization. After all, his thunderous palm contained the Tao of life and death. If even the Tao of life and death couldn't do anything, how could the pure power of death and withering be effective? World Lord. Seeing the radiant illusory figure vanish without causing any ripples, Namo Wisdom Manjushri and the others' expressions changed. Just as they were about to speak, the Dipankara archaic Buddha world lord chanted, Namo Amitabha. Then, he slowly returned to the sky above the river tide temple, sat down cross-legged, and remained silent. All the Buddhas were dejected. Other than Namo Wisdom Manjushri, who was still standing in mid-air, the others all sat down cross-legged and silently chanted Buddhist scriptures. Sigh, this is the only bad thing about Buddhism. Seeing this, Xiao Hua sighed inwardly. He looked at the sun that was about to reach his head, as if he wanted to see something. Currently, there wasn't much wind blowing in the blue sky. Previously, there were still some clouds, but they were all shattered by Immortal Emperor Gochen's sword. The scattered clouds floated in the air, as if they were cotton. Suddenly, as if he had thought of something, Xiao Hua's expression changed drastically. He flew into mid-air and scanned the area with his divine sense. Then, he opened his illusion-breaking eye and shouted, "Everyone, the area within 1,000 miles of the Longevity Town has been completely sealed. Not only is the noble Qi and the worldly essence unable to flow, even the air that mortals breathe has been sealed. We don't need to breathe to survive. From now on, we don't need to breathe anymore." After speaking, Xiao Hua didn't wait for anyone's response. His figure flickered, and he landed at the edge of the Longevity Town. Then, he carefully scanned the area with his divine sense. Give it a recommendation vote, collect it, or tip it. Thank you for all your support. Chapter 46-45. 200 years later, the the Longevity Town was no longer the same as when Xiaohua had left. Not only was the town a few times larger, but the surrounding population had also increased by more than 10 times. Moreover, due to the sutra seeking extreme bliss, the Longevity Town only had the tidal river temple and other businesses related to Buddhism. The population that was more than 10 times larger were all gathered outside the Longevity Town. When Xiaohua had left, the desolate roads and mountain ranges were now bustling with activity. Many villages and markets had appeared. In fact, if it weren't for the restrictions of Buddhism and Confucianism, the Longevity Town would have become a county long ago. The Xiantian Four Cardinal Grand Formation sealed off the Longevity Town within 1,000 miles. Naturally, it also trapped these mortals within the formation. Without air, Xiaohua and the other cultivators could survive. However, these mortals couldn't. Xiaohua had to either break the Four Cardinal Grand Formation or take these mortals into the Shenhua continent. However, Xiaohua was a little hesitant to take these mortals in front of the Dipankara archaic Buddha and Immortal Emperor Go-Chen. He was afraid that these two exalted experts would see through his secret. Especially Immortal Emperor Go-Chen. That guy had the clear heavenly mirror. Fortunately, the Xiantian Four Cardinal Grand Formation had just been activated. There was still plenty of air within the formation. Xiaohua's divine sense swept through the area. The mortals around the Longevity Town were still living blissfully and didn't realize that death was approaching. Ignorance. How nice. Xiaohua sighed and was about to move again. He already had a plan. In the end, he had to take these mortals into the Kunlun mirror even if he had to risk exposing his secret. Right at this moment, radiant colors flickered high up in the sky. Strands of multicolored lights were formed like raindrops. Then, these multicolored lights transformed into golden lotus clouds, Sarira lights, flaming clouds, and layers of clouds around the Longevity Town. The clouds revealed by the four cardinal flags surged and transformed into Dongfang Qianghao, Shimen Jianzhong, Nangang Tianji, and Baiming Chuqing. These four didn't have secondary bodies and weren't as large as normal secondary bodies. They were only a few dozen feet in size. As the multicolored lights passed by, all colors were restrained. They looked no different from ordinary mortals. Even the expressions on their faces were clear. Traitor. When Immortal Emperor Go-Chen saw the four clan masters appear, he immediately scolded them. Why did you all set up the Khanate Four Cardinal Formation to seal the Longevity Town and trap me here? Your Majesty. Dongfang Qianghao and the others didn't glare at him. Instead, they bowed respectfully and said, since the ancient immortals and Buddhas joined forces to destroy the Tao, the military school has made outstanding contributions in battle. Since then, they have taken control of the Immortal Palace, and we Confucian cultivators have all submitted. However, since His Majesty took over the hidden immortal continent, although he barely made some achievements, it was easy for him to monopolize power. Especially in the last 1,000 years, His Majesty was headstrong and self-opinionated, listened to slander, and favored treacherous rebels. He was muddle-headed and tyrannical, which really hurt the hearts of Confucian cultivators and philosophers. Ever since the militarists took over the Immortal Palace, the four great aristocratic families have been living in seclusion. We don't care about the worldly affairs of the hidden immortal continent and only support the government of the Immortal Palace. Today, the patriarchs of the 100 schools have written a blood letter to the people, begging us to come out and remove the emperor from his position. We will return the righteousness of Confucian cultivators and restore the stability of Confucian cultivators. We, the four great clans, place the foundation of Confucian cultivators as our priority and place the livelihood of the people as our priority. We write the four great clans' declaration to exterminate Gaochen to the world so that it can be heard properly. Damn it. Damn it. Damn it. Immortal Emperor Go-Chen was furious. He swung the Son of Heaven's sword at the four clan masters. Unfortunately, although the sword's light could stabilize mountains and rivers, it had no effect on the four figures. Dongfang Qianghao continued, we recognize that His Majesty has worked hard even if he didn't make any contributions, so we will give His Majesty 10 days to consider. If His Majesty kills Xiao Hua and abdicates, we will give His Majesty enough face and also make His Majesty the master of the Tushita Palace. If His Majesty doesn't kill Xiao Hua and abdicate at dawn 10 days later, then we will write the Four Great Clans declaration to exterminate Gaochen and attack the Immortal Palace first, then destroy the Fortune Gate and cleanse the land of our Confucian cultivators. With that, Dongfang Qianghao raised his hand and took out a piece of paper. He read, "The fake Sun clan of the Lin dynasty is not gentle in nature. Shichong Zi Wei Chen, once a servant in plain clothes. Late in life, he disturbed the Immortal Palace. Concealed the previous emperor's selfishness, trapping our emperor in a trap. With lizards as the heart, jackals and wolves as the second nature. Close to evil, killing the loyal and good. Killing the elder sister and brother, killing the emperor and killing the mother. Gods and men are jealous, heaven and earth cannot tolerate. Harboring evil intentions, coveting divine artifacts. The emperor's beloved daughter, secluded in another palace, the alliance of thieves, entrusted with heavy responsibilities. Minghu. Huazi Meng did not do anything, Zhu Suho is dead. Swallow pecks the imperial grandson, knowing that the Han dynasty is coming to an end. Knowing the rapid decline of Xiating. Today's emperor is tainted, his virtue is not reported, and he is guilty of 10 crimes. First, he indulged the Daoist sect, appeased the Hongmeng, left Penglai, and did not destroy the Daoist sect. Second, he observed the rise of creation, did not engage in war, and lived with it. Third, he used the name of a Confucian cultivator to confer the title of the master of the Wenxiu Palace. He was even more shameless, using the name of Thunder Master to commit immoral acts. Fourth, he used the Daoist sect's weapon to kill the elites of the Confucian cultivators, disrupting the peace of the 4 aristocratic families. Fifth, for the emperor's lack of virtue, causing chaos in the 9 states, and billions of lives could not be pacified. Sixth, for the emperor's lack of virtue, he indulged the 9th princess in the mortal world, fell in love with the remnants of the Daoist sect, and caused chaos. Seventh, for the emperor's lack of virtue, he neglected the empress, and favored the Flower Medicine Palace. Eighth, for the emperor's lack of virtue, he trusted close officials, causing chaos in the Tianji Hall. Ninth, for the emperor's lack of virtue, he was indecisive. Seeking scriptures in paradise seemed like a grand undertaking, but in reality, he was defeated, extremely shameless. 10th, for the emperor's lack of diligence, he allowed the Buddhist sect to invade and expand the hidden immortals. From then on, the hidden immortals were not the hidden immortals of the Confucian cultivators. The 4 aristocratic families' Confucian cultivators were the old officials, the emperor. He received the emperor's achievements, and the kindness of the emperor's court. Sun Weizi's joy and sorrow were justified. How could Yuan Junshin's tears be in vain? He used anger to calm the world. Because of the world's disappointment, he followed the heart of the universe. He raised the banner of righteousness to clear away the evildoers. The south connected to the 100 Yu, the north to the 3 rivers, the cavalry in groups, connected to the jade axis. The red millet of the hailing mausoleum, the accumulation of the warehouse is endless. The yellow banner of Jiangpu, how far away is the merit of restoring the country? The sound of the court moves, the north wind rises, the sword chi rushes, the south is peaceful. The mountain collapses with a whistle, the wind and clouds change color with a shout. With this to control the enemy, what enemy could not be destroyed? With this, what merit could not be subdued? The emperor's rank was either hiding immortals, or assisting the emperor's relatives, or being heavily entrusted with words, or receiving orders from the emperor. The words are still in the ear, loyalty will not forget the heart. A grain of earth is not dry, how can the 6 feet of solitude be supported? If he can turn the disaster into a blessing, he can send the past to the emperor's residence, and not abolish the emperor's order, he will be rewarded with the same title as the mountains and rivers. If he is attached to a poor city, wandering the wrong path, and ignorant of the signs of the past, he will be punished in the future. Please take a look at today's domain. Whose world is it? Dongfang Qianghao recited the declaration of the four great clans against Gaochen, with a sonorous and forceful tone. It was like thunder or war drums. The area within 1,000 miles of Longevity Town was filled with grief and indignation. It was as if Dongfang Qianghao's 10 sins were true. Not to mention the mortals, even Xiaohua secretly nodded after hearing this. This declaration was written very well. Anyone who heard it would feel that immortal Emperor Gaochen was not virtuous. The four great clans had no choice but to do this. All of the righteousness fell on the four great clans' side. After Dongfang Qianghao finished reciting the declaration, he didn't stop for a moment. His figure immediately disappeared, and the clan masters of the other three clans also disappeared. After the four great clans were gone, Immortal Emperor Gaochen and the others looked at each other with a bit of dismay. It was very clear that the four great clans were using the banner of cleaning up the Immortal Palace to force Immortal Emperor Gaochen to abdicate. If it was before, Immortal Emperor Gaochen wouldn't hesitate to order his troops to destroy the Fortune Gate in order to protect the Immortal Palace. However, at this time, the Fortune Gate's wings were fully formed. Not to mention the Immortal Palace, even the four great clans couldn't be seen in Xiaohua's eyes. How could Immortal Emperor Gaochen dare to send troops to kill the Fortune Dao Palace? The more Immortal Emperor Gaochen destroyed the Dao Palace, the more he would be killed by Xiaohua. In the end, he would still have to abdicate. Especially today, in Longevity Town, if Xiaohua dared to say he was second, no one would dare to say they were first. Who had the qualifications and ability to destroy the Fortune Gate? Because of this, the four great clans gave up on the 5-energy origin law and directly targeted Xiaohua and Immortal Emperor Gaochen's position. This was a blatant display of their ambition. If it wasn't for Gaochen abdicating and killing Xiaohua, the innate Four Directions Grand Formation wouldn't have been activated. Immortal Emperor Gaochen was the leader of the Immortal Palace. After hearing the declaration, he immediately calmed down and sheathed the Son of Heaven's sword at his waist. He didn't even have the intention to discuss with Taibai Jinxing and Sun Jian. He simply returned to the sky above the tidal river temple, thinking about how to kill Xiaohua or how to escape. Seeing Immortal Emperor Gaochen's reaction, Sun Jian glanced at Taibai Jinxing. Taibai Jinxing's face was also filled with worry. He glanced at Xiaohua and opened his mouth as if he wanted to say something, but in the end, he didn't say anything. Damn it. The golden-winged Great Peng laughed and shouted, "You humans are really interesting. If you want to fight, then fight. Why do you need to make a reason?" However, this declaration is really well written. This saint also wants to punch Gaochen a few times after hearing it. Ha ha ha. Xiaohua coldly glanced at the silent Gaochen. There were currently 4 forces within 1,000 li of this space: the Confucian cultivators, the Buddhist sect, the Taoist gate, and the demonic race. If Immortal Emperor Gaochen wanted to deal with Xiaohua, he could only join hands with the Buddhist sect or the demonic race, just like how they suppressed the Grand Mist Ancestor. But now, not to mention the Buddhist sect and the demonic race being on good terms with Xiaohua, even the Grand Mist Ancestor dared to appear in front of Immortal Emperor Gaochen. How could Immortal Emperor Gaochen deal with Xiaohua? If he pointed his sword at Xiaohua, he would only die a more miserable death. Therefore, Xiaohua looked at Gaochen, pondered for a moment, and said, "Your Majesty, give it a recommendation vote, collect it, gift it, and thank you for all your support." Chapter 46-46. What's the matter? Immortal Emperor Gaochen's tone was indifferent and even a bit arrogant. It was as if he wasn't affected by the declaration at all. He didn't even feel the awkwardness and danger of his situation. He simply asked, "If you want to capture me and go to the 4 clans to claim credit, then you have made a mistake in your calculations." Xiaohua was furious after hearing this and said, "Gaochen, don't think that just because you have the clear heavenly mirror, no one can do anything to you. You have the clear heavenly mirror and a 9th-grade Immortal Palace Wensheng. I also have millions of soldiers in my Kunlun mirror. If I want to capture you, it will be as easy as flipping my hand." Master Shaolei, Master Shaolei. Tai Bai Jinxing hurriedly flew over and bowed. If you have anything to say, please say it. Phew. Xiao Hua took a deep breath, but he immediately regretted it. He calmed himself down and pointed below, saying, there are millions of mortals within 1,000 miles of the Longevity Town. They should be the first victims since the Longevity Town has been sealed off by the 4 great clans. Moreover, they are powerless and have no way to resist. Therefore, if possible, Your Majesty, please use the clear heavenly mirror at the right time to capture these mortals. Who told you that my clear heavenly mirror can capture mortals? Immortal Emperor Go Chen said coldly, my clear heavenly mirror is the imperial artifact of the hidden immortal continent. Humph. Xiao Hua knew that he wouldn't reveal the secret of the clear heavenly mirror until the very last moment. Therefore, he wouldn't capture the mortals of the Longevity Town in front of everyone. Therefore, Xiao Hua coldly harumphed and ignored Huang Xiaolong. His figure flickered as he flew to the north and south, bringing all the Fortune Gate disciples into Shenhua continent. After all, the 40,000 disciples couldn't do anything in the innate 4 directions formation. They would only be fighting for air with the mortals of the Longevity Town. After everything was done, Xiao Hua waved his hand and called Wen Chu, Celestial Being, and the Thunderbolt Immortal to the front. He said, fellow Taoists, what do you think of the current situation? Seeing that Xiao Hua had gathered his clones together, Feng Wu looked at the golden-winged rock and said, Rock Sage, let's go take a look as well. Now that we're all on the same boat, let's help as much as we can. The golden-winged rock naturally didn't have any objections, and it flew over to Xiao Hua's side along with Feng Wu. At this moment, Wen Chu frowned and said, we naturally have to break through the restrictions now. But all of our methods are useless in the face of this innate 4 corners formation. Perhaps only Reverend Yun's dragon item can do it? It's a pity that Reverend Yun did not come with us, as we are currently trapped in the 4 directions formation, and we can't contact him. Thunder Reverend said with a wry smile, otherwise, I think we would be able to work together. The innate 4-way great array is too strange. Xiao Hua shook his head slightly. Even that dragon artifact might not be able to succeed. Therefore, I'm afraid that we won't be able to break the formation by force. It's simple. The golden-winged rock smiled and said, we can just capture old man Gaochen and hand him over to the 4 great families. As for what they said about first entering the Immortal Palace, then exterminating the Taoism sect, it's just an excuse. Now that the Fortune Gate is so powerful, the 4 great families might not have the energy to deal with the Fortune Gate. It's already good enough that they can deal with the military school in a short period of time. This is the 4 great families' original intention. Wen Chu smiled and said, they want to borrow Master Zhao's hands to capture Immortal Emperor Gaochen. In the future, they will use this as an excuse to join forces with the 100 schools of thought to exterminate the Taoism sect once again. The Dipankara archaic Buddha is determined not to interfere in this dispute. Xiao Hua raised his head and looked at the Buddhists who were reciting Buddhist scriptures with their eyes closed. He said, I'm sure you've seen through the complexity of this matter. Of course. These old bald donkeys are cunning. The golden-winged rock sneered, the 4 great families besieging the Longevity Town is due to the internal strife of the Confucian cultivators. Although the Taoism sect is involved, it has nothing to do with the Buddhism sect. They won't let out a single word. This has always been their style. When they have to bear the consequences, they will shrink back faster than anyone else. When there are benefits, they will fly faster than anyone else. That Mahavairakana archaic Buddha probably felt that the sutra praying in nirvana this time wasn't good and knew that someone would cause trouble. That's why he didn't dare to come over and ask the Dipankara archaic Buddha to come over. Oh, this is called tribulation facing in the Buddhism sect. Seeing how the golden-winged rock wasn't interested in the Buddhism sect, Xiao Hua smiled and said, actually, Rock Sage doesn't have to care about it. You just need to rest. How can this sage be compared to those old bald donkeys? The golden-winged rock said proudly, naturally, this sage wouldn't care about the four great families targeting old man Gaochen. However, the four great families even schemed against this sage. How can this sage let this go? Moreover, this sage and Dragon Master Xiao don't know each other. This sage is very willing to befriend Dragon Master Xiao. Whatever Dragon Master Xiao wants to do, this sage will support it. Good. Xiao Hua laughed and raised his palm, saying, a rock sage like this is also someone this Xiao is willing to befriend. Good. The golden-winged rock was overjoyed. He hurriedly flapped his wings and clapped with Xiao Hua's palm. After the palm strike, Xiao Hua smiled and said, now that this Xiao has obtained rock sage's support, why should I be afraid of this formation not being broken? Instead, it was the golden-winged rock who was a little embarrassed and said in a low voice, Master Xiao Lei thinks too highly of this sage. Previously, this sage and the Phoenix sage had already tried. We didn't have any effective abilities. Hearing the golden-winged rock being so straightforward, Xiao Hua didn't understand the hidden meaning in the human's words. He nodded and said, while a single person can surpass others and do what 100 people can do. However, if 100 people work together, what they can do will surpass that of a single person. Breaking the formation isn't just a matter of abilities. It's also a matter of methods. We still need to work together to succeed. Seeing that the golden-winged rock still didn't understand, Xiao Hua said even more straightforwardly, also, this Xiao doesn't need any abilities to help, as long as Rock Sage has the heart. There are still 10 days until the deadline. In the end, if there is no other way, this Xiao can just keep the mortals in the Longevity Town into the Kunlun Mirror. Isn't it just being trapped in the innate four directions formation? If nothing happens in 10 days, nothing happens in 100 days, if the four families have the ability to trap this Xiao for 100 years. There's no need for that. Feng Wu laughed and said, as long as the Thunder Sound Temple and Fortune Gate don't return after half a year, they will definitely come to investigate. At that time, the four families will be in trouble. Xiao Hua smiled and said, there's no need to wait that long. 10 days later, the four families will definitely make their move. After the Immortal Palace falls, that will be the time for the Four Directions formation to be activated. The ones who should be restless right now should be the Immortal Emperor, not us. Then why did fellow Taoist call us here? The Celestial was confused when he heard this. Naturally, I want fellow Taoists to look around and think of a way to break the formation. Xiao Hua explained, although this Immortal Emperor Gaochen is a little sinister, he is still Xinxin's father. If he controls the Immortal Palace, it will be the most beneficial for our Fortune Gate. If the four families control the Immortal Palace, not to mention the huge war that will kill many people, just the grudge between the Fortune Gate and the Nangong family will make our Fortune Gate fight with the four families sooner or later. Although the Fortune Gate is strong, the Tao Gate is not. After a long war, our Tao Gate will be destroyed. A single branch is not spring, but 100 flowers blooming is spring. Good. This sage understands. The golden-winged Great Peng nodded and said, this sage will go to the north to investigate and see if I can find any flaws. Seeing the golden-winged Great Peng leave in high spirits, Feng Wu and the others also cupped their hands and flew away. The clones understood that what Xiao Hua said was only a last resort. If they could break the seal and wipe out the four great clans, this was the best opportunity. The Four Directions formation surrounded the Longevity Town within 1,000 li. Xiao Hua's divine sense swept through and understood everything. The mountain range outside the town, the paddy fields, and the Liao River at the side of the Jiangchao Ridge were all clearly seen. In the following days, Xiao Hua did not dare to slack off. He opened his illusion breaker eye and scanned the Four Directions formation within 1,000 li, not missing a single spot. The more Xiao Hua looked, the colder his heart became. This Four Directions formation was indeed as Immortal Emperor Gaochen said, it was a Xiantian Grand formation. It could not be compared to ordinary formations, defensive formations, or Buddhist formations. Within the clouds, there were no flaws at all. Even when Xiao Hua's illusion breaker eye's silver light beam fell into the clouds, it could not cause any fluctuations. In the end, Xiao Hua helplessly stopped and stood in front of the mountain range like a crouching bull. At this time, it was also a moonlit night. There seemed to be some wind and rain high up in the sky, but this wind and rain could not fall on the mountain range. Xiao Hua looked at the place where Lu Yi and Yuanya had a barbecue several hundred years ago. After several hundred years of wind and rain, this mountain range had changed a bit. There were fewer rocks and more trees. Even the cries of beasts in the forest had increased. However, in Xiao Hua's ears, the cries of the beasts in the night were still sorrowful and helpless. Hearing this, Xiao Hua's heart was also uncomfortable. In the distance of the mountain range, there were a few small villages. At this time, it should be night time, but many of the houses in the village were lit. Clearly, in these few days, some people had discovered that something was wrong, and the people were a bit anxious. Sai, the Black Wind Ridge is not too far from here. If this four directions formation was a bit bigger, perhaps it could enclose the Black Wind Ridge. Xiao Hua thought to himself. However, since this four directions formation can even seal the power of faith, the teleportation channel should not be able to be used. Even if the Black Wind Ridge is here, it should not be able to be used. Thinking of the Black Wind Ridge, Xiao Hua's heart suddenly moved. He looked at Liao Jiang again. At this time, Liao Jiang was like stagnant water. There was no water flowing in, and no water flowing out. Previously, Xiao Hua had already used his illusion breaker eye to see that it was also sealed by the four directions formation. Chapter 46-47. However, Xiao Hua thought to himself, that day when I fell into the eye of the sea in the West Sea, I escaped from the spatial vein in the Liao River. Although the Liao River has been sealed off by the innate five directions Great Formation, there might be some small spatial veins that can escape the seal of the four directions Great Formation. Moreover, I obtained the Yuzhou Cauldron in Liao River. I remember Sun Jian said that the places guarded by the 9 provinces' cauldrons are mostly connected to the 9 underworlds. Now that the 9 provinces' cauldrons are gone, maybe the 4 directions Great Formation has sealed the 9 underworlds. If I want to break this 4 directions Great Formation, I naturally have to explore Liao River. Thinking about this, Xiao Hua flew towards Liao River again, although he had already carefully explored the entire Liao River. Xiao Hua landed on Liao River and didn't explore again. Instead, he flew several hundred li away to find the place where he obtained the Yuzhou Cauldron. Unfortunately, when he arrived there, Xiao Hua's body couldn't fly anymore. When Xiao Hua entered the bottom of Liao River again, his divine sense swept over and looked regretfully at the place that was almost within reach. He smiled bitterly and said, Dongfang Qiong is really good at scheming. This innate 4 directions Great Formation just happens to be where the Yuzhou Cauldron is suppressing the netherworld energy. I can't even get half an inch closer. Xiao Hua had already used his illusion breaker eye to see where Liao River was. He knew that this place was also airtight. The water stopped flowing here and couldn't pass through at all. After thinking for a while, Xiao Hua patted his forehead and unwillingly opened his illusion breaker eye again. He looked at the place where the Yuzhou Cauldron was. The southwest was where the white clouds and the flame clouds intersected. Xiao Hua's eyes were filled with clouds and he couldn't see any gaps at all. When Xiao Hua activated his illusion breaker eye, a silver-white beam of light roared and fell into the clouds. The clouds were still like cotton and didn't move at all. They didn't even rotate. Forget it. Xiao Hua knew that he had hit a wall again. He withdrew the beam of light from his illusion breaker eye and was about to leave. It was at this moment that Xiao Hua suddenly froze. His entire body trembled as he cried out in shock, How? How is this possible? Xiao Hua hurriedly closed his delirium eye and slowly moved to the side. After flying for another 30 meters, he stopped again and opened his delirium eye again. He saw a layer of silt in front of him. Xiao Hua's delirium eye actually saw a familiar blue jade necklace. Isn't this the water-phase jade luo of the Xianyuan water control flag that Xiao Hua saw in the Xianyuan water palace at the bottom of the river? This jade necklace was also in the shape of a cloud. It was extremely harmonious with the white clouds and the flame clouds. If Xiao Hua hadn't landed here to look carefully, he definitely wouldn't have found it. Impossible. Impossible. Xiao Hua's body trembled as he thought to himself, this place should be the location of the Yuzhou cauldron. This Xiao has already carefully examined it before. A few days ago, this water blue jade was definitely not here. Moreover, this Xianyuan water control flag Xing Luo is a great enemy of this Zhao's devil saber. If it had been there before, this Zhao's devil saber would have reacted. In other words, this water phase jade luo only appeared recently. However, this water phase jade luo belongs to the Xianyuan water control flag, and the flag is in Xian's hands. Xian was also imprisoned in the Heaven's Punishment prison crystal by that damned Gaochen geezer. How could this flag be here? Could it be? Could it be? Thinking of this, Xiao Hua suddenly recalled Tai Bai Jingxing's words at the end of the sutra praying in extreme bliss. Xiao Hua suddenly became excited and thought, could it be that Gaochen geezer actually placed the new Heaven's Punishment prison crystal here? He wanted to wait until after the sutra praying in extreme bliss and let Tai Bai Jingxing speak. He used the sutra praying ceremony as an excuse to release Xian from the Heaven's Punishment prison crystal. Damn it, could it be that this Xiao wronged Immortal Emperor Gaochen? Yes, it's possible. He originally wanted to do so, but because of Xiao Mao's repeated appearances that disrupted his plans, he changed his mind and didn't pardon Xian. Moreover, it was because he knew that Xian's Xianyuan water control flag was here that he was so calm. He was waiting for the reactions of the Supremes, waiting for this Zhao's reaction. This bastard actually had such a backup plan. If that's the case, then this Xiao has given this Xiao a good opportunity. This Xiao doesn't need to look at Immortal Emperor Gaochen's face anymore. This Xiao will find the new Heaven's Punishment prison crystal and see what that bastard has to say. That's not right. If Xian was imprisoned in the Heaven's Punishment prison crystal, how could the jade luo from the Xianyuan water control flag enter this place? Oh, I see. It must be that Xian used the Xianyuan water control flag to send the jade luo through the Heaven's Punishment prison crystal to seek help from the outside. If anyone could see the jade luo, then they would naturally be able to find the Heaven's Punishment prison crystal. And today, the four clans just happened to place the innate four corners grand formation on top of the Heaven's Punishment prison crystal to suppress Xian, so the jade luo was integrated into the innate four corners grand formation. The special thing is that if I'm not mistaken, the Xianyuan water control flag is one of the innate five directions flags, and this jade luo is one of the clouds in the innate five directions grand formation. It is normal for the jade luo to be able to enter this place. If that's the case, then I only need to find the Heaven's Punishment prison crystal and rescue Xian. Wouldn't her Xianyuan water control flag be able to break the innate four corners grand formation? But right now, the Heaven's Punishment prison crystal is not inside the innate four corners grand formation, but below it. How can I obtain it? Xiao Hua closed his delirium eyes and landed on the bottom of Liao River. His hand pinched his chin as he pondered. After half a cup of tea's time, Xiao Hua's mouth revealed a trace of a smile. Subsequently, Xiao Hua called Tian Ren, Thunderbolt Immortal, and Wen Chu to the side and told them the cause of the matter. When the doppelgangers heard this, they were all overjoyed. Xiao Hua then said, "Fellow Taoists, I'll have to trouble you to confine the area within a dozen miles of this place. Don't let Gaochen Old Man and Dipankara Old Buddha see anything." All right. Celestial Being, Thunderbolt Immortal, and Wen Chu knew what Xiao Hua wanted to do, so they didn't dare to be careless. They flew back for several miles and activated their divine abilities to seal the area around them. Xiao Hua scanned his surroundings with his divine sense. Seeing that he was absolutely safe, he slightly extended his left arm. Boom. Demonic energy rushed out from his arm, quickly covering his entire body. In a moment, a demonic god Xiaohua appeared, and the demonic blade murder appeared from Xiaohua's left arm. Seeing the devil's saber sure appear, Xiaohua didn't hesitate. With a shua sound, it fell on top of the innate four-way great array. However, the place where the demonic saber murder landed was precisely the few pieces of aqua-blue jade above the four directions great array. These aqua-blue jade were different from the flame clouds and white clouds that formed the great array. Although the clouds under the demonic saber murder were swallowed by the demonic saber murder, the surrounding clouds swarmed over, leaving no gap at all. However, the aqua-blue jade beads where the demonic saber murder landed actually revealed their shape in an instant, and then withered and disappeared like a flash in the pan. However, just a moment after the jade beads disappeared, woo-woo. An extremely large number of jade beads began to surge out crazily. These jade beads could be seen with the naked eye, and they pounced towards the demonic saber murder. And the demonic saber murder didn't need Xiaohua to activate it at all. With a AO. Demonic energy and demonic light were produced, violently pouncing towards the aqua-blue jade beads. Hundreds of thousands of years of suppression had already made the demonic saber murder and the Xianyuan water control flag become mortal enemies. When they met each other's aura, they immediately began to fight and kill. Although he knew that the Xianyuan water control flag wasn't afraid of the demonic saber murder, Xiaohua still carefully controlled the demonic saber murder's demonic energy. But contrary to Xiaohua's expectations, in just half a cup of tea's time, the aqua-blue jade beads suddenly flourished, gushing out more violently than a fountain. Within the gushing flow, Xian's joyful mood was revealed. Xian. Xiaohua was also ecstatic, hastily putting away the demonic saber murder. The aqua-blue jade beads didn't disappear, but instead surged even more. In the time it took to smoke a cigarette, the aqua-blue jade beads covered an area of several li, forcibly pushing the flame clouds and the white clouds apart. Xiaohua's figure fell into the jade beads. The jade beads didn't stop Xiaohua, but instead dodged one after another, revealing a gap that was neither big nor small. Xiaohua, with an excited mood, rushed into the gap, and saw that the jade beads had given birth to another paperweight that was several li in size. This paperweight was golden in color, and its surface was engraved with countless ancient inscriptions. These inscriptions emitted light and shadows, and countless Confucian cultivators' fortunes were like dragons swimming in this light and shadow. These dragons' movements seemed to have no order, but it was extremely mysterious. It tightly sealed the area under the paperweight, and it basically couldn't leak out any aura. Moreover, under these light and shadow, there were even more mountains, rivers, and plants falling down. Could it be that there were tens of thousands of these overlapping images? However, right now, outside of the paperweight, there were several layers of flame clouds and white clouds twisting around. The originally mysterious dragon's fortunes were forcibly blocked, and the seamless overlapping light and shadow also had a few flaws. The aqua-blue jade beads were rushing out from these flaws. Fellow Taoist Wenxiu. Xiaohua saw this paperweight and felt a thick imperial aura, as well as a mountainous power of order. Xiaohua immediately understood that this was an item from Immortal Emperor Go Chen's Immortal Palace to suppress the Tian Fa prison crystal. He didn't hesitate and anxiously said in his mind, "Quickly come here." When Xiaohua's heart was moved, Wen Chu's figure flashed and appeared next to Xiaohua. After seeing the paperweight and the three clouds on the side of the paperweight, Wen Chu couldn't help but smile. "Congratulations, fellow Taoist. This is the Jiji paperweight on the jade table in the Lingyun Palace. It is used to place the spring and autumn brush used by the Immortal Emperor to write decrees." This old man heard from Sun Jian that it was the Immortal Emperor's favorite. Under this Jiji paperweight, it must be Xian. Is there even a need to say it? Xiaohua smiled and said, "The Xianyuan water control flag has appeared, so how could Xian not be here?" Old man Gaochen was too cruel. He actually threw the Heaven's Punishment prison crystal here and even used some bullshit paperweight to suppress it. No wonder even the Celestial Empress couldn't find Xian's aura. No wonder this guy isn't in a hurry. It seems like this is his backup plan. Chapter 46-48. Now that we found Xian's whereabouts, everything will be solved. Let that old man Gaochen just watch. While speaking, Wen Chu raised his hand and clapped. 5-colored true energy gushed out. For safety's sake, Wen Chu added 3-colored true energy into the 5-colored true energy. When the 5-colored true energy turned into a huge hand and slammed down, the fortune roared like a dragon and broke free from the paperweight, pouncing on Wen Chu. Under the attack of the fortune of Confucian cultivators, Wen Chu's huge hand showed signs of collapsing. Haha. Xiao Hua smiled and said, I've said it before. The fortune of Confucian cultivators is just a strand of Reverend Yun's qi. Although Reverend Yun is not here, I can still control it. Otherwise, wouldn't my title of Dragon Master be in vain? While speaking, Xiao Hua opened his mouth and was about to spit out a dragon breath. But after thinking for a while, he reached out his hand and grabbed the red dragon crown, putting it on his head with a flip of his hand. Ayo! The brilliance of the red dragon crown fell, and lines of dragon runes emerged from Xiao Hua's body. He let out a long roar that sounded like a dragon's roar. Then, he spat out a mouthful of dragon breath that landed on the dragon-like fortune. Roar. The dragon-like fortune was also very strong. It roared and pounced on the dragon breath, and in just a moment, it was entangled with the dragon breath. Ha ha ha. Wen Chu laughed heartily. His large hand fell from the side. Under the 5-colored cloud, the light that was lifted turned into many inscriptions on the armor. They fell like dead tadpoles. When these inscriptions landed on the aqua-blue jade, they turned into lonely strokes. The huge 5-colored hand fell on the paperweight and grabbed it. Then, Wen Chu roared, Rise! Rumble. Under the Liao River, a loud rumble could be heard. The golden paperweight was slowly pulled out from the ground by Wen Chu. The whole underground shook, and the heaven and earth order rushed out of its confinement uncontrollably. The Liao River, which was like stagnant water, suddenly became a huge wave. However, under the confinement of celestial being Lightning Immortal, the huge wave calmed down in a moment. Of course, how could Immortal Emperor Gaochen and the others not notice Liao Zhang's momentum and the heaven and earth order that represented the Immortal Palace? Especially since the source of the order of heaven and earth was at the bottom of Liao River? Immortal Emperor Gaochen's expression changed. Seeing Wen Chu pull out the paperweight, Xiao Hua's heart beat wildly. He opened his mouth, and with a roar, he swallowed the destiny that was fighting the dragon breath into his stomach. Then he waved his hand, and the 5-colored hand of lightning fell and merged with Wen Chu's 5-colored hand of true energy. Rise! Xiao Hua also roared and pulled out the golden paperweight all of a sudden. Then, Xiao Hua decisively released his consciousness and rolled it on the golden paperweight. Whoosh! Instantly, the paperweight on the Immortal Palace's Lingyun Hall changed to Zhao's surname. With the disappearance of the Shiji paperweight, the boundless water-blue-colored pearls crazily gushed out. Xiao Hua's figure once again flashed and was about to rush in, wanting to find a new Heaven's Punishment prison crystal to imprison. At this time, a graceful figure flashed inside the pearls. With a smile on her face, Xian appeared in front of Xiao Hua with tears in her eyes. For some unknown reason, seeing the smile on Xian's face and the tears at the corner of her eyes, Xiao Hua's heart was filled with great joy. It was as if his previous actions of forcing the southern heavenly gate, fighting at the Sunset Cliff, and now being trapped at the Longevity Town, everything he had done had turned into fleeting clouds. It was as if nothing in this world could compare to a trace of a smile from this woman before him. For the sake of half a teardrop at the corner of her eye, he was willing to use all of his abilities to erase it. Xian. Xiao Hua called out in a low voice. His right hand reached out and pulled Xian into his embrace. Xian clearly agreed and did not resist at all. It meekly threw itself into Xiao Hua's embrace and blissfully placed its face on Xiao Hua's chest. Its pair of hands also circled around Xiao Hua. On its left hand, there was a small flag. Wasn't that the Xianyuan water control flag? When the two of them met, their gazes only met for a moment. They only said 2 words and then each other's warmth. All words were powerless and pale at this moment. The pearls fluttered around the two of them. It was like Xian's shy and happy mood, and it was also like Xiao Hua's peace of mind after embracing his lover. After half a cup of tea's time, Wen Chu coughed and said behind Xian, fellow immortal Xiao. Ah. Xian was shocked and hurriedly pushed Xiao Hua away. She struggled out of Xiao Hua's embrace with a red face and watery eyes. When Xian saw Wen Chu's cultivation, she couldn't help but turn pale with fright. She hurriedly bowed and said, "Junior." "Shoo." Xiao Hua raised his hand and stopped Xian. He whispered, "No need to be polite with him. He's my good friend." Her hand took the opportunity to grab Xian's slightly warm and soft hand. "Ah. Why are you also?" Xian immediately realized Xiao Hua's strength was unfathomable. She cried out in shock and tried to pull her hand out of Xiao Hua's grasp. "Let's talk about it after we get out." Xiao Hua couldn't bear to let go of Xian's hand. He firmly grasped Xian's hand and explained, "Right now, we're trapped in the innate 4-way formation. Do we still need your Xianyuan water control flag to help us out?" "Oh." When Xian first escaped, she thought everything in front of her was done by Xiao Hua to save her. When she heard Xiao Hua's words, she hurriedly looked up. With Xian's cultivation, she naturally could not see the connate 4 corners formation. However, as she waved the Xianyuan water control flag in her hand, the flaming clouds of the floating flame flag and the plain clouds of the white cloud-bound flag immediately appeared. Xian didn't say much and only asked, "How can I help you break the formation?" Xiao Hua naturally didn't know how to break the formation. He was afraid that Xian's escape would attract the attention of the 4 great families and create some other variables. He only explained the situation of the innate 4-way formation. In the end, he said, "Since your Xianyuan water control flag is one of the innate 5-direction flags, this watercolored pearl can also be integrated into the innate 4-way formation. Then, it might be able to create a flaw in the innate 4-way formation." "I understand." Xian heard clearly and said with a sweet smile, "Don't worry, Xiao Lang. I've already successfully refined the Xianyuan water control flag. Facing the 4 almost ownerless 4-way flags, creating a flaw is as easy as flipping my hand." Xian, you're awesome." Xiao Hua was overjoyed. Looking at Xian's smiling face, he couldn't help but raise his hand and use his left thumb to stroke Xian's dark eyebrows. Although this action wasn't as intimate as kissing, Xian liked it very much. Her lips smiled like a crescent moon and she gently pulled her hand back. "Xiao Lang, watch how I cast the spell." "Okay." Xiao Hua smiled and nodded, but his figure was unwilling to leave Xian even half a step. Xian stole a glance at Wen Chu in the distance and fiercely glared at Xiao Hua a few times. However, seeing that Xiao Hua's face was as thick as a city wall and was unwilling to leave, Xian was helpless. However, she felt even more sweetness in her heart. Xian raised her hand. Without activating it, a faint 5-colored true qi gushed out from her arm and landed on the Xianyuan water control flag. When the Xianyuan water control flag received the true qi, it immediately flashed with a water blue color. As the flag fluttered, an endless amount of jade flew out and rushed towards Xiao Hua's head. There wasn't any sound, but as the jade flew past, the white clouds and flame clouds appeared like a tide and were squeezed to the sides. And in the middle of the jade, a gap of several tens of feet was created. "Awesome!" Xiao Hua praised and quickly kissed Xian's forehead. Although this kiss was like a dragonfly skimming the surface of the water, Xian's face immediately turned crimson. Xiaohua ignored Xian's rolling eyes and hurriedly said, Xian, when you break through the seal, listen to my explanation. I'm sure you know that this is the Liao River beside the Longevity Town. Today is the day when the sutra seeking of extreme bliss ends. I, Xiaohua, and the Immortal Palace, Thunder Monastery, and Great Sage Hall are here to welcome Chuanzang's return. However, who would have thought that the four great families would lay down this early Heaven Four Cardinal formation, trapping the Immortal Emperor, the Dipankara Archaic Buddha, and the golden-winged Great Rock within? Hearing that the Immortal Emperor was here, a trace of panic appeared in Xian's eyes. Seeing this, Xiaohua didn't dare to explain further. However, he couldn't not explain and hurriedly said, Don't be afraid. I've already gone to the Immortal Palace to ask for your hand in marriage. The Immortal Emperor promised that as long as I can save you from the Heaven Punishment Prison Crystal, he would agree to my dot. Before Xiaohua could finish speaking, Xian was so embarrassed that his neck turned red. He hurriedly kicked Xiaohua lightly, not allowing him to continue speaking. Xiaohua had never treated Wen Chu as an outsider. He also didn't expect the calm and decisive Xian to be so shy. He hurriedly stopped and said, All right. I won't say any more. I'm just letting you know about the current situation. Moreover, from the looks of it, you're also His Majesty's backup plan. However, I've already discovered it. Now, I'll make him suffer in silence. Yes, I understand. Xian nodded. I'll activate the Profound Origin Water Control Flag. Darling Xiao, you can inform His Majesty and the others to come over. Once there's a passage, we'll be able to escape. All right. Xiaohua smiled and nodded. Then, he said to Wen Chu, Then, I'll have to trouble you, fellow Immortal. Go and inform Immortal Emperor Gaochen, the golden-winged Great Rock, and the Dipankara Archaic Buddha. All right. Wen Chu smiled and left. How could he not understand Xiaohua's intentions? If Xiaohua wanted to inform them, why would he need to leave? Xiaohua only needed to inform the Heavenly Being and the Thunderbolt Hermit, and they would be able to inform Immortal Emperor Gaochen when they removed the restrictions. Seeing Wen Chu leave, Xiaohua said in a low voice, Xian, it's all my fault. I didn't expect you to do so much for me. It's all right. Seeing that there was no one around, Xian regained her calm and smiled, Aren't you here now? I'm very happy. Give it a recommendation vote, collect it, or tip it. Thank you for all your support. Chapter 46-49. Then. Are you still going back to the Immortal Palace? Xiaohua hurriedly asked. This was what he wanted to ask. A trace of desolation and helplessness appeared in Xian's eyes. After thinking for a moment, he replied, Of course I don't want to. However, if there is no marriage agreement, no matchmaker, and no orders from my parents, I am really not suitable to stay by your side. After all, I'm still the 9th princess of the Immortal Palace. I can't let others laugh at me, and I can't embarrass His Majesty. All right. Hearing Xian's first sentence, Xiaohua felt relieved. He smiled and said, I won't make things difficult for you. That's great. As he spoke, Xian's little finger scratched Xiaohua's palm as he whispered, If there's no one around, you can do this. But when His Majesty comes later, you can't do it. I know. Xiaohua's heart was bursting with joy. He held Xian's soft hand a few times before letting go because Immortal Emperor Go Chen's clear gaze was sweeping over from afar. Your Majesty. Xian didn't dare to be careless and quickly spoke after seeing Immortal Emperor Gao Chen's figure. Immortal Emperor Go Chen waved his hand and said, No need to be so courteous. I have suppressed you here to prevent any changes in the sutra seeking of extreme bliss. Yes, Your Majesty. Xian was even more disappointed after hearing Immortal Emperor Go Chen's cold tone. She answered and activated the jade bracelet again. Boom, boom, boom. It was also at this moment that outside the jade bracelet, there was a sudden great tremor. The jade bracelet began to swirl in the air, and the several hundred feet wide passageway suddenly shrunk. Obviously, the four aristocratic families had already discovered that there was something wrong with the array, and had begun to activate the four square flags to encircle and suppress the Shenyuan water control flag. Puff. Xian glanced at the slightly anxious Xiao Hua. Without any hesitation, he spat a mouthful of essence blood onto the Shenyuan water control flag. At this time, the flag didn't reject Xian's essence blood like it did at the beginning. Instead, after Xian's essence blood fell, it immediately produced a blood-colored jade. This jade was 3 times bigger than before. Moreover, this jade's blood-colored light seemed to be able to spread. In a moment, it had already dyed all the jade, and the nearby space was blood-red. Whoosh! Suddenly, a wave of awe-inspiring chi descended upon Xian's body. Xian hurriedly called out, "Darling Xiao." Hearing that Xian didn't call him, "Your Majesty," and instead called him, Xiao Hua, Xiao Hua's heart was about to be drunk. He turned around and shouted, "Your Majesty, leave quickly." "All right." The Gochin Immortal Emperor acknowledged. 5 colored radiances flickered around his body, and he transformed into a distorted silhouette as he dashed out of the tunnel. Behind him wasn't Sun Jian or Tai Bai Jinxing. Instead, it was the Dipankara Archaic Buddha World Exalt. The Dipankara Archaic Buddha World Exalt nodded at Xian before disappearing in a flash. Caw. After the Dipankara Archaic Buddha, it was naturally the golden-winged Great Rock. He let out a strange cry and blinked his eyes at Xiao Hua and Xian before flapping his wings and rushing out of the tunnel. Then, the primordial chaos ancestor, Phoenix Wu, heavenly being, and the others flew over. Xiao Hua nodded slightly, and his clones left first. In the end, the primordial chaos ancestor cupped his hands towards Xiao Hua helplessly before flying out of the tunnel with the concealed night child and Taoist rider Crane. After these people left, Xiao Hua grabbed Xian's waist and said, "Let's go. We'll leave first. There's no need to wait for the formation to be completely broken. Once His Majesty leaves, this earlier Heaven Four-Way Grand Formation will be broken." "All right." Xian agreed obediently. A jade bracelet appeared beneath his feet and carried him and Xiao Hua out of the tunnel. As expected, after flying for a few hundred feet, sounds of mountains collapsing and the earth cracking could be heard from outside the jade bracelet. The entire tunnel expanded by dozens of times, and the pressure of the earlier Heaven Four-Way Grand Formation suddenly disappeared. As Xian waved the Shenyuan water control flag, the jade luo near the water slowly disappeared. Under the sunlight, Xiao Hua could see clearly that he and Xian were already above Liao River. Currently, due to the earlier Heaven Four-Way Grand Formation being broken, the Liao River's water that had been obstructed for several days gushed down like a flood. As it roared, the paddy fields by the shore were swept into the river. Damn it! Seeing this, Xiao Hua cursed inwardly. Not daring to delay, he waved his hand and took out the Kunlun mirror. In a flash of light, tens of thousands of Fortune Gate's disciples were released. When these disciples heard the battle cries in front of them, their blood boiled, and they prepared to use their magic power to fight. However, Xiao Hua ordered, "Disciples, use your divine abilities to suppress the Liao River's water. Don't let the river water reach the shore." The group of Fortune Gate's disciples looked at each other, but they were only stunned for a moment. Then, they roared, "Yes, disciples understand." Then, each of them flew towards the Liao River, preparing to suppress the flood. Darling Xiao. Seeing Xiao Hua giving orders like this, treating the Longevity Town's citizens as more important than anything else, Xian's heart was intoxicated. That thin figure, slender eyebrows, and that unfathomable benevolence, he was far more charming than any all-powerful general or emperor. Admiration flickered in Xian's eyes as she whispered, "This concubine can do this." Without waiting for Xiao Hua to answer, Xian waved the Mystic Origin water control flag in her hand. Hundreds of jade talismans fell into the Liao River, and the roaring water dragons immediately submitted, obediently flowing along the river. Although the river's water level was much higher than the shore, there was not a trace of water that exceeded the river's flow. "Good," Xiao Hua praised. His hand reached out again, wanting to hold Xian's hand. Xian was originally flying out with Xiao Hua's arm around her waist, but when she saw Xiao Hua take out the Kunlun mirror, she immediately dodged to the side. When she saw Xiao Hua's hand, her figure flickered again, and she winked at Xiao Hua with her left eye. Those quivering eyelashes and the bashfulness in her eyes seemed to tickle Xiao Hua's heart, making him reluctant to reject Xian's pleading. Xiao Hua could only withdraw his hand, and then he ordered the disciples, "All of you, line up and prepare for the battle." "Yes, sect master." The disciples were also the kind of people with sharp eyes. Seeing Xian like this, how could they not know what was going on? They all shouted in unison, "Sect master." These 5 words were truly earth-shattering. Although Xian did not know why Xiao Hua was called sect master, seeing Xiao Hua being so revered by the disciples, she was also happy. The corners of her mouth curved up, and it was like the mellow fragrance of sweet wine. Xiao Hua glared at these disciples, and then released his divine sense to look around. He saw that the current Longevity Town was no longer the Longevity Town before the extreme bliss scripture-seeking bliss. Thousands of miles above Longevity Town, millions of disciples from aristocratic families had formed a battle team. This battle team was very similar to the 4 aristocratic families' disciples Xiao Hua saw in front of Chaomu Cliff, but it was also different. The strength of these disciples was clearly a level higher than the 900,000 disciples. Moreover, these 1 million disciples were divided into 2 layers. 30% of the disciples were in the inner layer, guarding the 4 directions, facing Longevity Town, and surrounding it like an iron bucket. Above these aristocratic family disciples, Dongfang Qianghao, Shimen Jinzhong, Nangong Tianji, and Baiming Chu Qing's faces were heavy with helplessness and unwillingness. They each held a small flag in their hands, and the flags were covered in clouds, protecting 30% of the disciples. And outside of these disciples were another 70% of the disciples. These disciples wore heavy armor and were facing the outside. Their killing intent and majestic auras were like dragons, cruising around the edges of the battle squad. Boom! 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 Just as Xiao Hua was looking around, in the sky to the left of the Longevity Town, there was a loud rumbling sound. Countless pillars of vast qi crashed into the town, and the sky was already wide open. Groups of immortal soldiers and immortal generals raised their banners high, stepping on the earth, fire, wind, and thunder as they descended. They even sealed off the 10,000 li radius around the Longevity Town. The sounds of battle and the rosy clouds had already blocked the sunlight that filled the sky. The piece of the Sutra of Bliss had already been torn to pieces. Under the mask of mercy, a bloody ferocity was revealed. Dongfang Qianghao. Immortal Emperor Go Chen was facing Dongfang Qianghao. He was 1,000 zhang tall now, and his sun and moon imperial robes were majestic. Lightning flashed as he spoke. His voice was like the punishment of the heavens. "I have always treated the 4 clans well. I even wanted to betroth my beloved princess to you 4 princes. I didn't expect you to have such evil intentions, setting up such an ambush in Longevity Town. If it wasn't for the heavens protecting me, I would have fallen into your trap." Gaochen. Dongfang Qianghao smiled coldly and said, "The winner is the king, the loser is the bandit. Since you're lucky that my innate 4 cardinal formation can't trap you, there's no need to waste time. Let's fight. Let's fight and see who wins." I am the son of the heavens, the ruler of the immortal palace. I have the fortune of the world on me, so how can you covet it? Immortal Emperor Go Chen laughed and pointed around. You've been surrounded by my solar temple, lunar temple, heavenly king temple, and light temple. How can you survive? If you abandon your weapons and surrender, you may still have a way out. If you stubbornly resist to the end, only death awaits you. Old Go Chen. Dongfang Qianghao was not moved at all. He said coldly, history is always written by the victors. Fortune is always the reward of the victors. If you didn't steal the power of the Immortal Palace, how could you have the fortune of fortune on you? Don't worry. Once I kill you in the Longevity Town, it will be renamed as the Bandit Town, and the luck of Confucian cultivators will return to me. Wishful thinking. Immortal Emperor Go Chen sneered and took out his Son of Heaven's sword. Since you don't know how to repent and cherish the chance I gave you, then let the wrath of the heavens descend and punish your rebellious path. Immortal Emperor Go Chen looked at Wen Chu in the distance and ordered, Wen Chu Palace Master, can you help me kill these traitors? Wen Chu's body flashed and landed on the other side of Dongfang Qianghao. His voice was like thunder. How can I not obey your Majesty's orders? Everyone has the right to kill these traitors. Give it a tip, and thank you for all your support. Chapter 4650. With that, Wen Chu raised his hand and the heaven and earth pagoda flew out. The pagoda emitted a thunderous roar and enveloped the area within 100 miles of Dongfang Qianghao. Its unstoppable force slammed down towards Dongfang Qianghao. Haha. Dongfang Qianghao wasn't afraid at all despite the pagoda's boundless aura. He sneered, you don't know what kind of treasure you're facing. With that, Dongfang Qianghao waved his hand and the small flag in his hand began to move. Wen Chu understood that this flag was a triangular flag. The entire flag was apricot yellow, and there were 5 golden lotuses embroidered on the flag. Between the 5 jade talismans, there were faint cloud patterns. The edges of the flag were embroidered with clouds, suns, and moons. When the flag was waved, the clouds floated and the sun and moon shone brightly. Moreover, the flag didn't summon any worldly energy or righteous aura. There wasn't even any energy fluctuation. However, as he waved it, the small flag shone with an apricot yellow light. Every time the light flashed, many golden lotuses would appear and slowly float in the air. Strange runic symbols flowed on the apricot yellow light. These runic symbols were golden and silver in color, and they looked like tadpoles or inscriptions. The lotuses rushed to the sky and landed below the pagoda. The pagoda rumbled several times but couldn't descend. It was stopped by Dongfang Qianghao's apricot yellow flag. There wasn't the slightest trace of smoke and dust. In the name of the Son of Heaven, I summon the might of the heaven and earth, summon the arts of immortal Confucianism, and punish the traitors. Immortal Emperor Go Chen sneered and took out his sword while chanting. As the emperor's words echoed in the air, the entire space trembled. Waves of earth-shattering ripples came down along with layers of heavenly punishment. The lightning was like fire, burning the sky red. Immortal Emperor Go Chen had already brought down his sword. The heavenly punishment and the wrath of the immortal palaces not only fell on Dongfang Qianghao but also the hundreds of thousands of Dongfang clan disciples. The west side of Longevity Town was where the Shiman family was guarding. Shiman Jinzhong held a triangular ball of light in his hand. The white cloud-bound flag did not reveal its true appearance. Beneath him, there were also hundreds of thousands of disciples from aristocratic families, close to 1 million. They were about to clash with Lunar Temple's troops. Shiman Jinzhong didn't command the battle formation. He narrowed his eyes and looked forward. In front of him, the golden-winged Peng and Feng Wu had surrounded him. Not to mention the fact that Feng Wu wanted to kill Shiman Jinzhong, even the golden-winged Peng was furious. As it flapped its wings, hundreds of pillars of light descended from the sky and fell into the star marks on its body. Then, a starlight phantom several thousand feet in size appeared near the golden-winged Peng's body. The space within this phantom completely collapsed and a destructive aura filled the air. The Phoenix Wu didn't dare to be careless and also moved her monster body. Boom, boom, boom. The power of the stars and moon poured down like a river of stars. As countless star patterns flashed around the Phoenix Wu's body, a starlight phantom that was less than 10,000 feet tall but seemed to be solid and transparent appeared. The brilliance at the edge of this phantom was distorted, and if one's gaze fell upon it, they would immediately sink. The Phoenix Wu let out a clear cry and activated her monster body and phantom at the same time as the golden-winged roc. Her 4 sharp claws were suffused with a power that could destroy heaven and earth as she pounced towards Shimen Jianzhong. Shimen Jianzhong sneered. He waved the ball of light in his hand. The ball of light scattered, revealing a triangular cloud-bound flag. The flag was white, and there were 5 clouds embroidered on the flag. The 5 clouds were different, and there were some cloud-like patterns in between. At the edge of the white cloud-bound flag, there was no special shape, only some twisted cloud patterns. At this moment, when Shimen Jinzhong waved the white cloud-bound flag, the entire small flag emitted a white brilliance. At the bottom of the brilliance, strange runes flowed. These runes were the same as the other flags, they were golden and silver in color. They were shaped like tadpoles and were shaped like inscriptions. Moreover, under the brilliance, there was a lot of dense clouds. These clouds seemed to slowly float in the air, but in a moment, they protected Shimen Jinzhong and some of the disciples of the Shimen family, welcoming the terrifying attacks of the golden-winged roc and Feng Wu. The south of the Longevity Town was naturally where the Nangong clan was guarding. Nangong Tianji's face was filled with shock as he faced the celestial being and the lightning-enlightened being. He really didn't expect Immortal Emperor Gaochen and the others to be able to escape from the innate 4 directions grand formation. In order to set up this innate 4 directions grand formation without attracting the attention of the Immortal Palace, avoiding the Earth, the Heaven and Earth Gate, and the Thunder Sound Temple's Arhat, the 4 great clans spent a lot of effort. In order to dispel Immortal Emperor Gaochen's doubts, the 4 great clans even used the conflict between the Nangong clan and Xiaohua to set up a trap. They were prepared to use the 900,000 disciples and the Nangong clan's reputation as the price to lure Immortal Emperor Gaochen. Whether it was the reputation or the 900,000 disciples, these were the limits of the 4 great clans. Their goal was to trap Immortal Emperor Gaochen in the Longevity Town so that they could attack the Immortal Palace and obtain the Golden Throne. Fortunately, Xiaohua was merciful. He took the Nangong clan's reputation and released the 500,000 disciples back to the 4 great clans. Dongfang Qianghao secretly laughed at Xiaohua's soft-heartedness and comforted Nangong Tianji, saying that they would use the blood of the Fortune Gate's disciples to wash away the humiliation of the Nangong clan. However, the Nangong clan was clear that once the 4 great clans took over the Immortal Palace, the first thing they would do would be to appease and recruit the Fortune Gate. There was no way they would start a war. The Nangong clan would definitely be tied to the pillar of humiliation. The humiliation of the Nangong clan would probably only be forgotten after thousands of years. Therefore, when he saw the celestial being and the lightning-enlightened being attacking together, Nangong Tianji's eyes turned red. He didn't wait for the 2 of them to make a move and immediately waved the triangular ball of light in his hand. As the ball of light scattered, a triangular floating flame flag was revealed. This flag had 5 different colors, and there were 5 flames embroidered on the flag. Not only did each flame have a different color and shape, but they also divided the flag into 5 regions. These 5 regions intertwined with each other, and it looked like the chaotic space of the 5 elements. The 5 flaming swords also had some interconnected threads of fire. Strange runes were flashing on the swords. As Nangong Tianji waved the swords, the runes turned into tadpoles and swam on the flag. Layers of flame-shaped clouds rushed out rapidly and protected the disciples of the Nangong family and Nangong Tianji. Motherfucker! The celestial cursed as the clouds flew out. The layers of defenses were stronger than anything in the world, and the celestial raised his hand to summon the Deva's white bone. Rumbling sounds could be heard as the surrounding space began to collapse, and the magical laws of heaven and earth began to arrive. Seeing the faint golden light around the celestial being's body, and the laws of heaven and earth disappeared the moment they entered the golden light. The lightning enlightened being laughed and said, "Congratulations, fellow cultivator. If I'm not wrong, you will be able to refine the celestial being's white bone into your body today." Roar. The celestial being roared towards the sky. Golden light shone from his body, and 3 heads and 6 arms slowly grew out. The 3 mouths shouted at the same time, "Whether or not I can succeed will depend on whether the celestial being floating flame flag of that old bastard Nangong can withstand my attack." After he finished speaking, the celestial being didn't hesitate. He waved his hands and feet and rushed towards the flaming clouds of the floating flame flag. Puff puff puff. A series of muffled sounds came as the celestial being activated his cultivation technique. While refining the celestial being's white bone, he attacked Nangong Tianji at the same time. The celestial being's body flashed with golden light, and when the golden light landed on the cloud, it was as Immortal Emperor Go Chen had said. All evil was repelled, and all the golden light hit the surface of the celestial being's body. Waves of strange fluctuations came from the places where the golden light landed, and they rushed into the celestial being's body and penetrated his bones. Seeing the celestial being in such a state, the Thunderbolt Hermit kept the Thunderbolt sword that he had already activated and stood at the side with his hands behind his back to support the celestial being. However, the Thunderbolt Hermit also released his divine sense and scanned the surroundings. The primordial chaos ancestor, the concealed night child, and the riding crane hermit, who had flown out earlier, were nowhere to be seen. They must have left this troublesome place as soon as they escaped. The north of the Longevity Town was naturally where the Dark North family was guarding. However, the Dipankara archaic Buddha, who had rushed out together with Immortal Emperor Go Chen, wasn't in a hurry to leave. Instead, he sat cross-legged on the 9 grades lotus platform and glared at Dark North Kyo Ching, who was holding the triangular flag. The Buddhism sect was naturally merciful, but it didn't mean that they didn't have the means to subdue devils. Back then, in the profound water palace, Gu Zhen even used his protective means and overestimated himself, trying to shake the profound essence water control flag. Facing the green lotus flag today, the Dipankara archaic Buddha's world lord was truly enraged. However, he chanted, "Namo Amitabha, my Buddha is merciful. Please forgive your disciples' anger today." As he spoke, the Dipankara archaic Buddha world lord raised his right palm, which expanded to a size of several miles. That Buddha palm was no longer a Buddha palm. Instead, it resembled a huge mountain, a deep pool, or countless Buddha kingdoms. Boundless power of faith fell within this Buddha palm. Under this Buddha palm, the power of mountains, stars, and samsara, which were commonly seen in Buddhism sect's Buddha seals, were continuously produced. Following the changes of this force, the space above the northern Nether family's head started collapsing, and being annihilated. Buddha lights, blood lights, and even faint cries of wandering souls could be heard. Dark North Kyo Ching's expression changed drastically. However, she forced herself to remain calm and waved the green lotus flag in her hand. This green lotus flag was different from the other 5 elements flags. A layer of treasured radiance covered the flag, and within the radiance, strange runes flickered. At first glance, this treasured radiance resembled the Maitreya Buddha's 7 Wonders tree. Give it a recommendation vote, collect it, or tip it. Thank you for all forms of support. Chapter 46-51. However, there were 3 green lotuses embroidered on the flag gate. The lotuses were of different sizes and were arranged in a triangular formation. Each of the lotuses had clouds coming out from them. These clouds intertwined on the flag and formed circles as thin as mosquitoes. Currently, as the green lotus flag was being waved, countless rays of light shot out from the circular surface of the flag, forming the shapes of sariras of various sizes in mid-air. These sariras emitted a kind of extreme gentleness. As they shot into the air, they welcomed the Dipankara archaic Buddha's Buddha palm. Kill. As the group of Supreme Being experts made their moves, the immortal soldiers and immortal generals naturally received the orders from their generals. They activated the clouds and pounced on the battle teams of the disciples of the four great clans with weapons in hand. For a moment, the battle cries rang out again. Immortal Emperor Go Chen was fooled by the four clans and came to longevity from his palace. However, he was still fully prepared and hid his troops in the fire, earth, wind, and lightning above the town in case of an emergency. Unfortunately, Immortal Emperor Go Chen still underestimated the four clans. The moment the Xiantian Four Corners Grand Formation appeared, it immediately cut off all information. If it wasn't for the new Mystic Water Control flag, then the four clans would have succeeded. Once Immortal Emperor Go Chen escaped, the first thing he did was to issue a decree and order the 10 halls to surround and annihilate the disciples of the four great clans. Of course, the four great clans were not unprepared. The 70% of the disciples outside the Grand Formation were prepared to meet the 10 halls troops. In the time it took to finish a cup of tea, tens of thousands of disciples and immortal soldiers had already perished. Their flesh and blood began to scatter all over the sacred ground of the Buddhist sect. As for Immortal Emperor Gaochen, the Son of Heaven's sword carried the heavenly punishment and slammed into the 10,000 golden lotuses of the apricot yellow flag. The lotuses were destroyed by the heavenly punishment, but they were born again. Even with the suppression of Wen Chu's worldly pagoda, the Son of Heaven's sword couldn't reach Dongfang Qionghao's eyes. Immortal Emperor Go Chen and Wen Chu didn't succeed, but the Peng and the Phoenix Parasol didn't fare any better. The four claws of the two grand saints were extremely powerful at this moment. Even if there was a mountain here, it would still be torn to pieces. However, when such a powerful attack landed in the clouds, it destroyed most of them. But in the next moment, more clouds surged out and dragged the two great saints' bodies out of the clouds. He didn't let them get close at all. As for the Dipankara archaic Buddha's Buddha palm, as soon as it landed, the Sarira lights were annihilated. However, as the lights were annihilated, another layer of lights appeared. These layers of lights overlapped each other and blocked the Buddha palm's attack. Upon seeing this, be it the Immortal Emperor Go Chen, the Dipankara archaic Buddha, or even the golden-winged Great Rock, their expressions changed drastically. After all, as long as the four great clans had the four cardinal flags, they would be in an invincible position. This battle would probably not have any results. They all looked at the new princess who was standing with Xiao Hua in the distance. His gaze fell on the Xianyuan water control flag in her hand. Feng Wu, Daoist thunderclap, and Wen Chu's expressions didn't change at all. They knew clearly in their hearts that even though the four great clans had the innate four-directional flags, the flags could only be used for defense. In other words, they were invulnerable to all evil, and invulnerable to all techniques. Xiao Hua's Devil's Saber massacre was the nemesis of these four cardinal flags. As for the heavenly being, he was happily activating his abilities and rushing into the flaming clouds. He was extremely busy. Xan. The Immortal Emperor Go Chen said, "Listen to my command. Help me destroy this yin-yang apricot yellow flag." "Yes, Your Majesty." Xian naturally couldn't disobey the orders of the Celestial Emperor, so he respectfully responded. He secretly glanced at Xiao Hua before urging his body to fly out. When Dongfang Qionghao saw this, his face turned even paler. He seemed to have already seen the four great clans bleeding all over the ground and being annihilated. Boom, boom, boom. It was also at this moment that a thunderous sound came from the sky. It was like a torrential rain, and it was like 10,000 horses were mute. This sound covered the sky and passed through the sky. The floating clouds in the sky were more or less shattered. Layers of chaotic fluctuations fell down as if the sky was falling and the earth was splitting. In an instant, the sun and moon lost their light, and the stars dimmed. What's going on? All of the Supreme Being experts were dumbfounded. As the fluctuations descended, waves of fear and trepidation inexplicably arose in their hearts. A faint scent of blood and destruction drifted around their mouths and noses. However, this phenomenon disappeared in a flash. Before they could think about it, the sky above them shone brightly once again. Not only did the ripples disappear, even the sound disappeared. Everything was like the deafening battle cries. There was no change at all. That strange phenomenon was like a dream in an instant. Oh no. How could Xiaohua not understand what had happened? He didn't hesitate at all. He didn't dare to conceal his cultivation anymore. He raised his hand and slapped his forehead. The immortal Emperor Go-Chen also pointed at his forehead. Golden light overflowed from his eyes, and waves of strange fluctuations slowly appeared in front of his eyes. As for the Dipankara archaic Buddha, the World Lord retracted his Buddha palm. Shadows appeared in his ears, and countless radiances appeared behind his head and fell into the shadows of his ears. Boom! Just when the Supreme Being experts were about to execute their abilities to calculate the karma, another massive chi pillar emerged from the earth, fire, wind, and lightning. A patrol inspector clad in bright armor descended from the sky. His figure was still distorted, and before he could solidify, a panicked voice resounded, Your Majesty, the Heaven's Secret Hall's G Prefecture has an urgent report. Before the inspector's voice could land, ka-cha-cha, a thunderous rumble could be heard. From the direction of the soaring Dragon Mountain Range, a Fortune Gate disciple with a cultivation of grade 8 origin energy was flying over. That disciple's face was filled with panic as he hurriedly said, reporting to the Patriarch, There is an urgent report from the Star-Picking Tower. Boom. Similarly, from the Thunder Monastery's direction, a pillar of Buddha light pierced through the sky. A long-eared arhat clad in a monk's robe hurriedly descended while stepping on a 6th-grade Buddha lotus. That arhat's eyes were filled with disbelief. He didn't have the calmness of an ordinary Buddha as he said, Dipankara archaic Buddha, the World Lord, Heavenly King Polylore has sent an urgent report from the southern part of the Blessed Land world. Speak. Immortal Emperor Go-Chen hurriedly stopped his divine ability and retreated. Reporting. Without waiting for the patrol inspector to speak, the starry sky to the north of the Longevity Town was already in chaos. Streams of stars fell from the sky, and after they fell to the ground, a celestial bridge pierced through them and rushed over from afar. Amidst the starlight, a faint hall could be seen on the other side of the celestial bridge. The Great Sage Hall's celestial bridge sent a message. The golden-winged Great Rock didn't have any divine ability of karma, nor did he have the ability to predict the future. He only knew that something earth-shattering must have happened in the 3 continents. Now that he saw the Great Sage Hall using the celestial bridge to send a message, his expression changed greatly. He exclaimed, Could it be that something strange has happened in my 1,000 demons' sacred territory? Sage Peng. No demons appeared where the star bridge landed. Instead, a dignified voice sounded. It was the 3rd great sage of the Great Sage Temple, the mystic armored Pentaceratops. Strange insects have appeared in the extreme north of our 1,000 demons' sacred realm. There are countless of them, and they devoured several demon realms in a single day. Not only did the demons in the demon realms vanish into nothingness, even the mountains and lakes of the demon realms have disappeared without a trace. It is exactly the same as the Qijing, Yuanfeng, and Bingqin demon realms from before. Countless? The golden-winged Great Rock was dumbfounded. Not only that. The Pentaceratops continued, the same insects have appeared in the west of the West Sea. They have devoured hundreds of thousands of sea demons and thousands of dragons. The Dragon King of the West Sea, Ao Hong, happened to be patrolling the Eye of the West Sea and was besieged by the insects. It is unknown whether he is still alive or not. Sacred Rock, we have gathered at the Great Sage Hall. You and Sacred Phoenix should return quickly so that we can discuss how to eliminate these insects. West Sea Dragon King Ao Hong is still alive? Let alone the golden-winged Great Rock, even Immortal Emperor Go-Chen, the Dipankara archaic Buddha, and Xiaohua were stunned. The Dragon King of the West Sea, Ao Hong, was a Dragon King of the 9th grade Essence Qi realm. Although he had yet to reach the peak of the 9th grade Essence Qi realm, he shouldn't have been besieged by these insects, right? Strange insects. Xiao Hua suddenly came to an understanding, and his gaze passed through everyone to look at Sun Jian. Sure enough, Sun Jian's expression changed drastically as well, and he just happened to be looking at Xiao Hua. As their gazes met, a strand of indescribable terror arose in their eyes at the same time. None of the people present knew how powerful the strange insects they had encountered in the void were. If they encountered those strange insects, then the 3 continents would be doomed. After all, even the dragon race and the dragon temple were no match for those strange insects. After the profound armored Pentaceratops finished speaking, the starry bridge disappeared, and the inverted starry river returned to its original state. Your Majesty. The Immortal Palace's inspector stole a glance at Immortal Emperor Go Chen, who had also turned pale, and reported, "Urgent report from the Heavenly Mysteries Hall. Strange insects have appeared at the border of the hidden Immortal Continent in the east of the Ji province. These insects are innumerable. They are like locusts, leaving no survivors behind. Now, they have caused the annihilation of 10 countries. Millions of living beings have died. 10 7th-grade Essence Chi Realm disciples of the Heavenly Mysteries Hall have perished, and 400,000 immortal soldiers guarding the border of the continent have gone missing." Long-eared Arhat. Shock appeared on the Dipankara archaic Buddha's face as he looked at the Arhat who had sent the report. Reporting to the World Lord. Long-eared Arhat hurriedly replied, "Heavenly King Polylore has sent an urgent report from the southern part of the Blessed Land world. Strange insects have appeared at the border of the Blessed Land world. These insects are of different sizes. The small ones are less than a few inches, while the big ones are more than a few dozen feet. These insects devour everything, and they especially like things that contain the spiritual chi of heaven and earth. Some insects even devour Buddhist lights." Before the report was sent, more than 40 temples and 60,000 Buddhas had gone missing. Among them, 7 Arhats and 14 Vajras had gone missing. Chapter 46-52. Hearing this, Xiao Hua couldn't help asking, "How many people have gone missing?" That long-eared Arhat originally had other numbers to say, but when he heard Xiao Hua's question, he took a deep breath and lamented, 40 temples. About 4,670,000 benefactors have disappeared. So many. Xiao Hua's heart ached, then he looked at his disciple and asked, "Do you have more bad news?" That Fortune Gate disciple took a deep breath and said loudly, "Other than the above, Zhai Xing Lu has other news. On the hidden Immortal mainland, strange insects have appeared in Qing province and Yangzhou, killing nearly 700,000 people in 4 towns. On the White Bone Mountain range in the western part of the Western Paradise, 400,000 people have gone missing, and the mountain range has been swallowed. If I'm not mistaken, it is also the doing of strange insects. On the eastern part of the Thousand Demons Sacred Territory, 800,000 demonic beast tribes have gone missing near the Chitty River, including 307 greater demonic beasts. On the eastern part of the Eastern Sea, 310,000 sea tribes have been killed by strange insects. Anything else?" Xiao Hua gritted his teeth. "Yes." That disciple flipped his hand and took out a jade eye. He passed it to Xiao Hua and said, "Zhai Xing Lu has lost more than a dozen disciples and sent back images of strange insects." Xiao Hua lifted his hand and made a grabbing motion. The jade eye instantly fell into his hand. Xiao Hua flipped his hand and placed it on his forehead, but at that moment, he hesitated for a moment. He closed his eyes slightly, calmed his mind, and put it down. As Xiao Hua had expected, there were more than a dozen images of strange insects in the jade eye. Some were big, some were small, and 2 of them were exactly the same as the ones he had seen in the void on the Dragon Island. Among these dozen strange insects, there were 3 that were bigger than the strange insects he had seen on the Dragon Island. Similarly, there were 7 or 8 strange insects that were smaller than the strange insects Xiao Hua had seen in the void. Moreover, the smallest strange insect, Xiao Hua, seemed to be slightly familiar. He pondered for a moment before coming to a realization. Wasn't it the myriad of black dots he saw in the spatial rift when he fell into the Western Sea all those years ago? At that time, the black dots were completely black, but he could still remember the shape of the black dots. Wasn't it similar to the smallest strange insect? Moreover, the black dots wriggled like maggots, and the black dots attacked like soul spikes. Xiao Hua's memories were still fresh in his mind. Even Xiao Hua, who had an innate divine restriction outside his Naiwan palace that was impossible for ordinary people, was knocked unconscious by this strange insect's soul-piercing attack. Then, what about the other cultivators? If it were any other cultivator, even if they had reached the tribulation passing stage, without a special spirit treasure or even a heaven spirit treasure, they wouldn't be able to escape death. Xiao Hua's heart couldn't help but clench at the thought of the hundreds of millions of strange insect shadows. He took the jade eye ring off his forehead and looked at the disciples of the 4 great clans who had stopped fighting, as well as the immortal soldiers and immortal generals of the 10 halls of the immortal palaces. With sorrow in his eyes, he threw the jade eye ring to Sun Jian. Seeing the jade pupil slowly flying in the air, it didn't fall into Immortal Emperor Go Chen's hand, but it fell into Sun Jian's. Others didn't understand, but Sun Jian's heart felt as if it had fallen into an ice cellar. After receiving the jade eye ring, light flashed in Sun Jian's eyes. After looking at it for a moment, his face turned pale, and he respectfully passed it to Immortal Emperor Go Chen. After Immortal Emperor Go Chen looked at it, he passed it to Tai Bai Jinxing. Tai Bai Jinxing didn't take a look at it, and instead, he passed it to Namo Great Wisdom Manjushri, who then passed it to Namo Dipankara Archaic Buddha. After all the supreme experts present finished looking at it, the jade eye ring returned to Xiao Hua's hand. Xiao Hua looked at the jade eye ring with a heavy gaze, and just as he was about to keep it, Immortal Emperor Go Chen shouted from afar, "Xian, Xian, come and help me break this Wuji apricot yellow flag. Disciples of the immortal palaces, listen to my command, kill." Damn it! Xiao Hua was enraged. He pointed his finger, and a thunderbolt descended from the sky, striking towards Immortal Emperor Go Chen. Of course, this thunderbolt was only a warning. Immortal Emperor Go Chen wielded the Sun Moon Emperor armor to shatter this thunderbolt. Master Xiao Lei, are you going to offend your superior? Immortal Emperor Go Chen lost his face, and he couldn't help but feel angry. Your Majesty. Xiao Hua looked at the 10 immortal palaces of the immortal palaces, and suppressed the anger in his heart. Don't you see? The extraterrestrial enemies have already invaded the 3 continents and the 4 seas. If we don't work together to defend against them, I'm afraid the 3 continents and 4 seas will be destroyed. Destroy the world. How is that possible? Immortal Emperor Go Chen sneered. Since the ancient times, our 3 continents have existed for who knows how long, and who knows how many extraterrestrial dangers we've encountered. I also never knew that the extraterrestrial enemies had the ability to destroy the world. Are the cultivators of our 3 continents made of mud? Immortal Emperor Go Chen looked at Dongfang Qianghao, and said, to resist the foreign invasion, we must first settle our internal affairs. Even if I want to defend against the foreign invasion, I must first eliminate the 4 great clans. Otherwise, how can I be at ease killing those strange insects? Princess Xian hurriedly said, reporting to your Majesty, although I have already controlled the mystic water control flag, the innate 5-element flags are only good at defense, and cannot be used to attack. Moreover, I'm only at the lower 7th grade of origin energy. Even if I use the mystic water control flag, I can't break through the yin-yang apricot yellow flag, which is controlled by a 9th grade origin energy cultivator. Your Majesty, please understand. No matter. Immortal Emperor Go Chen laughed, as long as you can control the yin-yang apricot yellow flag's defense. Unfortunately, before Immortal Emperor Go Chen finished speaking, Xiao Hua also laughed loudly and said, no matter, Xian, go and help His Majesty. Let them fight to the death. This Xiao will send a message to the soaring Dragon Mountain Range, and my Fortune Gate's disciples will all go out to battle. Rather than dying in the mouths of those strange insects, why not exterminate the 4 great clans and the Immortal Palace, and this Shao will be free in the Cloud Ascension Palace for a few days. Amitabha. The Namo Dipankara archaic Buddha chanted the Buddha's name and gave up on Biming Cho Ching. He raised his hands and formed a Buddha seal with his palms. As the Buddha seal flickered, the radiance behind the Dipankara archaic Buddha's head shone brightly. Layers of Buddha radiance condensed into a stream and fell into the Buddha seal. Gradually, the space around the Buddha seal started distorting and collapsing strangely. Then, strings of golden tattoos gushed out like tadpoles. These golden tattoos transformed into a huge swastika character and slowly rotated in midair. Waves of cryptic fluctuations were emitted from the swastika character and rushed into the surrounding void. Seeing the Dipankara archaic Buddha's actions, Immortal Emperor Go-Chen hesitated for a moment. Then, he raised his hand and took out the clear heavenly mirror. He opened his mouth, and a dragon-like Confucian fate entered the clear heavenly mirror. The entire clear heavenly mirror let out a rumbling sound and transformed into a huge door of light. Appear. Immortal Emperor Go-Chen raised his hand again and slapped the crown on his head. Wu. Amidst the flickering lights, the impure five-colored true chi rushed into the door of light like a pillar. Then, the entire door of light shone with multicolored radiance. Strange fluctuations were emitted from the void and rushed into the radiance with a roar. Then, scenes of light appeared within the radiance. Xiaohua knew that the two supreme experts were using their abilities to divine the future. He also raised his hand and was about to release the Thunder Nebula. However, his heart skipped a beat, and he stopped. Looking at the trembling void and the intertwining fluctuations, he sighed, sigh. Then, he looked up at the sky again. The phenomenon just now wasn't created out of nothing. If there wasn't any danger of world destruction, why would there be such omens? As expected, after a while, the radiance within the clear heavenly mirror gradually faded, turning into black and white. The swastika symbol in front of the Dipankara archaic Buddha's eyes also slowly withered, turning into grayish-white. Immortal Emperor Go-Chen's appearance was hidden behind the golden radiance of the crown, and no one could see it. However, the despair on the Dipankara archaic Buddha's face was obvious. Amitabha, for great families. The Dipankara archaic Buddha's Buddha lotus beneath the Dipankara archaic Buddha's feet was already emitting Buddha radiances. He then said, "The unprecedented calamity of our three continents is approaching. No matter if it's the human race, the demon race, or the dragon race, all living in the three continents must work together to resist the enemies outside. Today's matter. My Buddhism sect won't pursue it any further. When you return, think about it carefully. Do you want to live in internal strife, or die in the hands of the strange insects outside?" Amitabha, Amitabha. Namo Daji, Manjushri, and the other Buddhas clasped their palms together and chanted Buddha's name. Following the Dipankara archaic Buddha's world exalt, they flew into the sky and disappeared in an instant. Caw. The golden-winged great rock also let out a cry. He flapped his wings and flew into the sky, shouting, "Old man Shiman, consider yourself lucky today. Before the calamity, I won't lower myself to your level. If you can fight against the enemies outside with the help of the human race, I'll treat it as if nothing happened. Otherwise. Hee, don't blame me for luring my 1,000 demons' sacred territories children into the four great families." After saying that, the golden-winged great rock flew into the sky. Feng Wu also nodded towards Xiaohua and followed after him. Seeing Feng Wu leaving, Xiaohua's heart skipped a beat. He hurriedly sent a voice transmission, "Phoenix Sage, don't we have a teleportation formation under the Black Wind Ridge? Use the teleportation formation to return with the Rock Sage." "All right." Feng Wu replied, "Since you've taken out our Fortune Gate's teleportation formation, I'm afraid the Rock Sage will treat you as his brother in the future." Then, Feng Wu and the golden-winged great rock's figures tilted and landed on the Black Wind Ridge. "Your Majesty." Seeing that the demonic beast race and the Buddhist sect had left, Dongfang Qianghao hurriedly said, "This old subject was foolish and blinded by greed. I actually wanted to scheme against your Majesty." Dongfang Qianghao's expression changed like flipping through a book. Xiao Hua was also dumbfounded. He listened in a daze for the time it took to brew a cup of tea. Dongfang Qionghao's endless confession was like a gem, and every word was brilliant. If he wrote it, it would be even more wonderful than the Four Great Clans' declaration of collusion. In the end, Dongfang Qiongghao said, "Therefore, this old subject is willing to lead the disciples of the four great families and be your majesty's vanguard. We will kill the strange insects, destroy the enemies outside, and return peace to the three continents." After saying that, Dongfang Qiongghao knelt in the air and bowed his head to beg for forgiveness. Give it a tip, and thank you for all your support. You're tuning into the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.